Okay,
Oh man.
and welcome to the final, probably final, I don't know why there'd be another, system overview video. We are doing this for several reasons. One, a bunch of people in our Discord server, which you can check out, link in the description, alongside the system, you can find link in the description in our Discord server. A bunch of people in our Discord server kind of made really good points about, like, how, hey, the system videos are sort of kind of split up into 5 different videos. You know, you got like a video over here that talks about this, you got a video over here talking about like character creation, and sometimes even in the most modern system videos, we will go, if you want more detail on that, go to this video, and that's probably a bad idea. On top of
Very,
that,
very obviously. I really don't know why we were asking. I mean, I guess like, cause like it would take forever.
it would
We
take
were
forever to
acting
explain
like
all
DC
this.
we were
It would take
acting like DC, a comic book company. We were going, if you want to know, tap into this comic.
You see, it's called view farming. But
Don't say that. They'll ban you from YouTube. But also like, yeah, it just takes forever, which is why we're doing this one now,
yeah,
because it takes forever.
On top of that, we did a big visual overhaul alongside just updating a bunch of stuff that we always thought was kind of bad in like something we should update, but we just didn't because it took too long, so we just didn't do it. But then we
Also,
decided
we
to do
have
it.
other stuff to do in our lives. You know, I
That
have
too.
work and study.
Yeah. So if you want to, since it's gonna be such a big video, if you check the description / the comment section, I'm going to link sections of this video. So if you want to know, like, oh, I'm confused about curse energy traits, then you can click on the thing that links you to curse energy traits. Obviously, I'm not going to do it for every single thing, as that'd be insane. So I'm going to do more like bigger sections, but the more obvious stuff, like, again, curse energy traits, domain expansion, CT, curse energy manipulation, character creation, curse creation, NPC creation, so on and so forth. Those will be linked in the description or down in the comment section. But if you just want a quick overview of the whole system, or if you're new to the system, then I do recommend watching this whole video through, or the best you can, or, go actually read the system. Because something I've learned in my almost 3 years of being a system creator, people don't read. So, yeah.
We JJK fans, and you know the rest.
Yeah, you know the joke. Anyways, let's begin with a, like we always do, a special thanks to, Breathe and Live. Not Breathe and Live. Breathe and Live, My Hero Class 1C. Specifically, Sun Punch Studio. I guess I gotta change that. They're no longer Pirahelia Creative. They're Sun Punch. But it should link to the same place. These are the guys that made...
Sunlight Yellow took over the community.
Yeah, these are the guys who made the baseline for the system that we base everything off of, and at this point we are so far beyond them, you don't have to like go to that system other than like, hey, do you want to check out a My Hero or a Demon Slayer system? You can go check out there. But yeah,
They make good stuff. They also have a Chainsaw Man system.
they do. They have a Chainsaw Man system, which is crazy because you have to like buy upgrades with money, which is awesome, but also psychotic because you have to buy like movement speed, which is really funny.
These guys are.
We need to get around with doing a goddamn Chainsaw Man game. What are we doing in our life?
Maybe. But this is the Will of the Curse, a Jujutsu Kaisen TTRPG. This system is very fast-paced, action-heavy. Obviously, there are aspects of, RP and such, but if you want a more action-focused system, you can use this system. On top of this, unironically, we made a very good PvP system. So if you want to do some PvP, it can get messy, but if you balance it right, it's generally really fun. We've done several tournaments of purely PvP, and it's quite interesting.
There's
NPCs
a whole. Yeah, it's a great thing.
Oh yeah, there is a whole community section that just has a fight club at this point.
People love fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. On top of that, the system is pretty rules light. we have gotten better at describing rules and such, so people actually know what to do. But there's gonna be a lot of moments where you're gonna get an interaction or two, and the DM is just gonna have to come up with something on the fly, because we cannot make every rule for every CT. We can't predict every interaction you're gonna do, because this is a big system with, you know, everything JJK related. There's gonna be a lot of stuff that we just can't predict. So because of that, the DM's gonna have to make it up on the spot. On top of that, this is a system unlike something like, you know, 5e, Pathfinder, all those, you know, official ones. This is a system that very much puts a lot of pressure on the DM. The DM is the one who does all of the balancing when it comes to like CTs and such. The player and DM sit together and they talk out the CT, and if the CT's too broken, then, you know, the DM has to not be afraid to come up to the player and say, hey, this is too strong, we gotta nerf it in some way. Or vice versa. You know, this is a system, excuse me, where the DM cannot be afraid to speak up. If the DM's afraid to speak up, you're kind of gonna, it's kind of gonna be hard to balance everything.
Also, please be nice to your DMs as well. I know that sometimes it sucks when you have your move greenlit and then you have to walk it back, but like it is very hard to conceptualize how something is effective in gameplay before you see it.
Yeah, no, there
And sometimes you just kind of have to, you know, look, play nice, man. They're making a whole fucking world for you. Come on.
For people who are going to planning on running a JJK D&D game, make sure to have a session 0. Session zeros are very important, and session zeros are very important so you can feel out how your character feels in combat. Note about combat: combat in this game can take very long, so I very much recommend avoiding combat encounters with large groups amount of enemies, and focusing on smaller, more intimate combat encounters with more complex enemies, as your survivability in this game is rather high on all angles. So you very, very rarely have to worry about, oh, my players killed the enemy in a single turn. Obviously, that is a thing that definitely does. You still have to worry about, but it's less bad than something like D&D, as your enemies have a lot of reactions they can do to keep alive, and so can your players. But that's just general advice.
I guess I don't need to talk about this slide because, hey, you're watching it. You don't gotta go check us out.
Hey guys, did you know there's this channel called Shonen TTRPG, and the creator, all funds made that channel goes directly to our base in Tel Aviv.
It does.
Don't
yes,
say that.
it does.
Don't say that.
Keywords, advantage, disadvantage is it works like D&D 5e. You roll twice, take the highest or lowest depending on it. Sure hits we'll talk more about when we get to domain expansions. And then there are some common colloquial, not, you know what I mean, for CTs and for curse techniques and domain expansions. On top of that, PL, SL, TL, IL, CL represents the stats and their level. But, if this video doesn't help you, click on this link to the Usami clarification. It was made by a fan, and it does a really good job at simplifying a lot of the more complex aspects of this system that take a while to get used to. This system is very much something where you're gonna play like session 0, session 1, and feel like an idiot, and then you're gonna get to like session 8 and 9, and it'll feel amazing. It just takes a little bit of feeling out.
I hope it'll
I hope so.
suck.
Oh, Samu! Adam, I love you, Adam! I love you, Adam Osamu!
That guy's pretty cool, yeah.
Stats and substats. So there are 5 stats, each representing a different aspect of a person. Don't talk about cooperation, okay? Hundreds of people have talked about how cooperation isn't a good name. Don't talk about it. But each of those stats have a substat underneath them. I don't know. A lot of people are like, oh, cooperation doesn't make sense for the charisma and personality stat, and I'm like, I guess not, because it has deception, but that's besides the point. This whole dice system, it originated from 1C, which I guess we should talk about the dice system. This is a D6 dice system, to be exact. So the way it works in this system is that depending on your level in that stat, that determines how many dice you roll. Specifically D6 you roll. So if you have a 4 in power, let's actually go to the power slide. If you have a 4 in power and you were told, hey, roll an athletics check, that means you would roll 4d6 because you have a 4 in power, and you would add whatever bonuses you have in athletics. So if you have a +2 in athletics, it would be 46 plus 2. So the dice you roll are based on the number you have in your stat, the level you have in your stat. But for power, we have combat, which is used for this is the roll. So combat is a very important stat, as any physical strike or attack you use, you roll combat to hit. So if you want to punch someone, you roll combat. If you want to hit someone with a sword, you roll combat. If you want to hit someone with a specific type of CT that like specifically says, hey, you hit someone with your fist or whatever, and from your fist spikes shoot out, you roll combat. If you are going to physically strike someone, you roll combat, no matter the situation. Again, besides specific situations where there's going to be a lot of ifs.
Until other than in the situations it doesn't apply.
Yes, there are going to be a lot of with the sole exception of in this video. Anything we say apply a with a sole exception of, because there will always be a sole exception of whenever we involve CTs. So keep that in mind.
For DM, since you're dealing with people who make their own abilities, use your gut instead of just raw system rules all the time. That being said, if the system does state something very clearly, and it's not like the player is taking advantage of that fact to allow something ridiculous, then go for the system.
Yeah, a lot of this has been like tested for a pretty long time. Like this works really well. If you stick with this, you should probably have a fine enough experience. And if you want to break away from it, like it might work, it might not. Like, but like come on, like, we reward.
You can trust.
Then there is strength, which is used for moving around heavy objects. Athletics, which is kind of an endurance stat. It's a stat you rolled for your physical ability to continue to do physical things for a long period of time. Fortitude is the more direct endurance stat. It's the one that's like, how much can you withstand pain, and how affected are you by poisons and such. That is the main stat you roll to resist status effects, which we'll get into that when we get to status effects. Intimidation, that's self-explanatory. Speed is really important for a lot of different reasons. The main one here is precision. Precision, much like combat, is what you roll to hit for any ranged attack. If you are hitting with a gun, bow, again, some CTs, depending on how you want to, word it, flavor it and all that, you roll precision. Precision is what you roll to hit with if you are rolling with a ranged attack. Reflexes are used for reactions and such, your ability to quickly move out of the way. But that's not what you roll for dodge. We'll get to that when we get to dodge. Tempo, this is what you roll for. This is what bonus you add to your initiative. So you add your tempo bonus to the initiative roll. Stealth, again, pretty self-explanatory. It's the thing you use to stealth. Technique, again, arguably the most important stat in the system. Okay, so let's do this one more time. Talent. Talent is what you roll for anything related to Jujutsu techniques or just Jujutsu in general. If you are rolling to activate a curse technique, rolling to use curse energy, rolling to hit with a curse technique, you use talent. Talent is what you based all of your Jujutsu things around and what you roll to activate those Jujutsu things, including rolling to hit with curse techniques. If your curse technique has a range to it, or just in general a attack, you roll talent to hit with your curse technique. Yeah. Then there is control, which control is about fine motor movements and the such. Survival is your ability to like forge in the wild and be, your survivability basically when it comes to things. Acrobatics is your ability to jump great heights and maneuver your body in certain ways. Intelligence has a lot of substats, as there is a lot of things in here. Perception, that's what you use for sight, hearing, taste, your ability to perceive things. General education, it's general education. Technical education is what you roll for technology and such like that. Jujutsu education, what you roll for jujutsu things when it comes to the mental aspect. Magical education is magical education. What do I need to tell you? Christ, we're only on slide 13.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
It's a long system, if you couldn't tell.
Oh, I mean, we might. If it's like too much of a problem, we could break the recording up and like record it to seconds.
No, we got this. Cooperation.
I'm dipping out like halfway through probably, so you're gonna get.
I knew that already.
Anyways, cooperation. Cooperation is your social stat, basically. It's a stat where it has charisma, persuasion, deception, insight, all those good things in there. Typically, you use insight to figure out deception, while you use stealth. You use perception to figure out stealth, and vice versa. The most important one in here is probably combo, as is what you use to roll for combo times, and any type of combo you want to do in combat, which we'll explain when we get to combo. Dice rolling. As we said before, this is a D6 system. We already explained that beforehand, but here are the difficulty classes for them, as since this isn't like a D20 system where it's like, a 10 is in average in a D20 system. Since the dice keep on changing and growing, we made a chart for it. You can look at this for any of the DCs you need to know. Except for whenever you get beyond 6. If you get beyond 6, the DC doesn't matter, and we're not accommodating 7 D6s or people with an 8 in the stat, okay? We're not accommodating you people.
You know how D&D breaks after level 15? Well, it doesn't completely break, but it's very limited when it comes to balancing after level 15. Yeah, think of that.
Criticals in this system are a little harder to get than your average D20 system, and that is due to the fact of your dice needs to... Yeah,
the DC progressively increases as you get more dice, because the more dice you have, the higher the number needs to be for you to get a crit. Because of that, we have a bunch of stuff, including generally speaking, we allow for your bonuses to count towards the crit, because otherwise it'll be a statistical miracle for anyone to reach to actually get a crit.
I don't think I've ever seen a natural critical for a beyond the 4 before.
Beyond 5, like I probably have, but like,
I think we have.
I've had, like, if I have, it's like once, and I have like 3 years of working this in. So yeah, obviously it's very hard to do. So that's why it's like this.
Whenever you crit with a skill check, you get the best possible outcome, but you don't get exactly what you want. It's up to DM discretion, and thus, if you like walk up to the king of a country and then charisma check them, you can't mind control them with your charisma. You'll get the best outcome, which might not be the outcome you want. Same thing with crit fails. You'll get the worst outcome, but not you failed deception, so your head explodes. It needs to be within reason.
That's a wrong perception check. A meteor comes down 3d8 damage.
Yeah. Combat is a little different. So, if you crit on a roll to hit, you gain 1 extra of your largest damage dice for that roll. So if you're rolling 2d8 plus 1d6 for damage, you're now rolling 3d8 plus 1d6 for damage if you crit on your roll to hit. If you critical fail, you automatically miss and fall prone for a turn. It doesn't matter if you rolled a, 10 on your crit fail, you still crit failed, so it don't count. Which crit fails are much harder to get in this system than crit succeed, because for crit fails to happen, you have to have all 1s, unlike crit successes where you only need to beat your maximum number you can roll.
Statistically speaking, you'll probably never crit fail after a certain point. But like, if you do, I think it would be like a really big shame if we didn't have anything, if anything on the rules for that. Because if you roll 5 1s, you deserve to like be punished, be like kicked in the balls a little bit.
Yes.
You know, it would be a shame if your DM just well, I can't do anything about that technically.
Yes.
You know?
And I hear people saying, "Oh, but what about if I crit on my CT activation?" Well, if you critically succeeded on your CT activation, your talent roll, the cost of that ability is subtracted by 2 curse energy. If you critically fail, you don't activate and still pay 5 CE or half cost, whichever is lower of the CT ability you are trying to perform. Which again, crit failing is really hard to do at higher levels, but yeah. Character creation. So character creation has a pretty simple and easy flow if you look at this chart. You start at choosing a grade level. Then you move on to like, do you want a CT? Do you want no CT? Do you want CE traits? So on and so forth. Stat distribution, which those are interchangeable, but it's up to you. Then you choose your archetype, which is basically your class. Get XP skills, here's the skills, and then you're done. We're going to go through all this real quick, but here's a quick and easy flowchart for those who are new to the system. So
To clarify, when we say that it's easy, it is easy like on a conceptual level. Translating your CT can be a bit difficult though, but
yes,
that's trial and error. It's all the stuff we said about.
Yeah, sometimes you're just gonna have to accept that a CT will not work in this system, and you're just gonna have to come up with a new idea. But for health is calculated by 10 plus your power level x 5. Curse energy is 15 plus your TL x 5. AC is TL plus SL. Movement speed is 30 feet plus SL x 5. For movement speed, we recommend you work on the function that every square is 5 feet, like a typical TTRPG, or at least typical, like D&D TTRPG. Work on the fact that
the ones I know of.
Yeah, like every square is 5 feet. We're working off of that. Then there is starting off. So when you start off, first off, you get a permanent aptitude and 2 additional aptitudes. We'll explain what permanent aptitudes mean when we get to training, because that will make a lot more sense when we get to training than trying to explain it here. On top of that, if you are working for Jujutsu Society, you get a Jujutsu uniform, which grants you +2 armor class in exchange for taking up the pants and shirt slot. Typically, we just give people the +2 armor class thing, like, no matter where they're starting off. It's just like, your starting gear will always have +2 AC, basically. Just no matter what. Now, if you wish to start with the curse technique, which most people are, you start off with a curse technique and up to 3 abilities, which you can have more than 3 abilities depending on your curse technique. That's just the recommendation of you start off with 3 so you can slowly grow and gain more. You can also choose to have a domain-based curse technique, which, as the name implies, are based on domains, the highest form of Jujutsu. If your CT is based on your domain, you start off with 10 more CE and can learn domain abilities earlier. However, your moveset will be more limited, and you may only have as many CT abilities outside of your domain equal to your level in technique. So if you want like a Hikari or Higuruma style CT, you get the benefits of being able to get domain expansion based abilities earlier, and 10 more CE to make up for the fact that you are going to spam your domain expansion. However, outside of your domain expansion, you're going to be a lot more limited with what your curse technique can do. Now, it doesn't mean you can't make non-lethal domain expansions, without starting off with a domain-based curse technique, but that's, a separate issue. Then there are the other options for starting off, which is starting off without a curse technique, and there are several different choices you can pick from inside this. So, first off, there is starting off with New Shadow Style, aka you want to be a New Shadow Style user, which of course you can be a New Shadow Style user later on, but this is just for people who want to primarily be New Shadow style and start off with it. That applies for all of these, of course, but yeah. You can choose to gain 2 extra grade 4-3 Jujutsu skills from any non-Black Flash or New Shadow style Jutsu skill table. That comes with everyone. If you choose to be a non-curse, if you choose to start off with no curse technique, you get this no matter what. The 2 extra grade 4-3 Jujutsu skills, you get that no matter what. Then, no, I'm sorry, I'm incorrect, and HH should beat me for that comment. This is if you just want pure hands. If you want no curse tool, no new shadow style, no curse corpse, you get 2 extra grade 4-3 Jujutsu skills. If you want just that. If you want to start out with a curse tool, then you get a curse tool equal to your grade level in strength. Pretty simple there. If you want to start out with a CE trait, you can choose to naturally have a CE trait, which does some benefits, and we'll get into that with the natural curse energy trait. You can also start out with a curse corpse, aka puppet, which is already has some commands and stuff applied into it. And then you can start out, or you can start out with New Shadow style, which allows you to start out with Beta Sword draw and instant draw already learned. But yeah, so you can pick one of these options to start out with. Okay, next up we have grade levels. Grade levels, I don't really have to explain what grade levels are. I hope you know what grade levels are if you played or watched, Jujutsu Kaisen. But these are the grade levels. Overall, grade 2 is where most of your gameplay is going to be in. That's like the good average level for players, and I would recommend, starting campaigns off at like grade 3 and then working your way up to grade 2. Like grade 4s are effectively like level 1s in D&D. You can do it, but most people start at level 3, which that's what grade 3s are. Grade 3s are effectively level 3s. Grade 2s are like, levels like, I don't know a lot of D&D, so I'm gonna say like level 6 to 10, around that ballpark. And then grade 1s are where most characters should end their journey, and they shouldn't get stronger than grade 1s, which grade 1s are like, level 12s to 15s.
Good end is like figurative terms, like as in, if you're going on a campaign, you should not get higher than this. You can end on like a grade 2, like that's perfectly fine. But if you're gonna keep going after that, you really should stop after grade 1, man.
Yeah, because the problem comes with special grades. Special grades are special grade 1s. Special grades are a whole different story. Special grade 1s are already difficult to balance in of themselves, because technically speaking, special grades 1s aren't any official term. Special grade 1s are just grade 1s that aren't official by Jutsu Tech. However, we made special grade 1s the fan term, which is basically just those who are stronger than grade 1, but not special grade.
Yeah.
Which you can technically have a special grade 1 player, but I warn you that they are very strong and almost impossible to balance around.
Primarily, this role should be filled by like very strong enemies in the campaign,
like in-game bosses.
The final boss, the final boss, or like very strong like late game bosses, or alternative like one of the very strong like allied characters of the players, something like that.
Yeah.
And then
special grades. You shouldn't even make special grade NPCs. I'm not even gonna lie to you, Chief. Special grades make so many issues when you bring them into a campaign, because they are so ungodly strong. First off, you can do whatever you want with them. Typically, our like headcanon is that like 12 is kind of like subtle cap. Like Gojo and Sukuna have 12s in their stats. That's like
as
the
their
cap.
highest.
Yeah, that's like the cap for stats. Obviously, you can go beyond that. You can make someone with like 20 in power if you want. It doesn't matter because they're special grades. But yeah, Again, I don't recommend including special grades in your campaign, because it brings the issue up of, hey, how come insert special grade doesn't just solve the issue because they're a special grade and they can do whatever they want? So, be careful when you include special grades.
Yes, a thing that you really should keep in mind if you're gonna have a special grade in your campaign is Gege wrote an entire arc focused around making sure Gojo was out of the plot. He made an entire grand scheme to remove that man from the narrative, because otherwise nothing could move the way could move in like
He
any
did that
natural
twice.
way.
He did that twice, because then he also had to come with the excuse of, how come Yuki doesn't just wipe through the calling games? Oh, she has to stay back and guard Tengen.
Yeah, different case, but like same principle. Yes, these people, like a special grade in your campaign would be, I would wager, in my experience, is generally more hassle than it's worth. So, tread carefully, if you will, if you really want to, anyways.
Yeah, the only special grade that was allowed to, like, really do anything in the canon was Yuta, and that was because he was the original main character, so he had MC privileges.
Not only that, yeah, also, like...
Also, he's, like,
yeah,
he's also, like, on the lower end of special grade.
And he had to fight an entire colony.
He had to fight a whole colony, and he still won.
It wasn't a 1v everyone, it was a free-for-all, but nevertheless, Yeah,
special grades create a lot of issues, so be careful when you make them. Next up is Sorcerer grade stats. So these determine effectively how much stuff you get whenever you start out with a certain grade level. So if you want to start out as grade 2, you would have a so there are two ways you can create characters. You can either follow the standard array, which we recommend you follow, which basically just means these are your stats and you can allocate them into any stat amount, but you have these numbers to put into your stats. Or you can do point buy, which we don't recommend, but it's there, where you just put points into your stats based off of this number. XP amount also is determined here, same thing with Jujutsu skills, XP skills, which there are XP skill restrictions. This restricts how many XP skills you can get. Same thing with Jutsu skills. So, something you might notice, and a lot of people point out, which is that if you go from... So let's say you start the campaign out at grade 3. A grade 3 that makes it all the way up to grade 2 is going to have more Jujutsu skills and more XP than if you're starting out as a grade 2. And that's just kind of how it is, you know? If we were to make it 1-to-1 and make it a, perfect replica of that, grade 2s and grade 1s would just be so ungodly strong. So because of that, they are a little weaker if you start out as them. But I feel that's fair because it's like... I feel, deserve to be a little stronger if you trudged all the way from, like, grade 3 to grade 1. I feel you deserve to have more XP, more jutsu skills than someone who just starts off as grade 1. You know, it makes the journey feel a little more earned.
It is also just a little bit hard to quantify everything because, for example, especially in the case of Jujutsu skills, because as you'll see later, they're granted via missions primarily. So we can't do a control test on how many missions a certain sorcerer is gonna go before they reach a certain grade level. So these are simply averages, and they're fairly speaking very decent averages for making a character functional and to feel the level that they are. You should especially do this with NPCs, because if you give an NPC 12 Jujutsu skills, no one's probably gonna bat an eye at it. They will definitely feel the level that they are, even if they have much less skills than, say, the player party, who's are like grade 2s, for example.
Yeah. On top of that, you might have noticed that we don't have semis on here. The reason for that is that semis are just like in between. So if you want to make like a semi grade 2, just like find the in between grade 3, grade 2, and then give them that, because that would be a lot for us to write up, and also it just gets like really complicated when you include semis, because there's like a 1 or 2 stat point difference between each grade level at that point, and that just, you can do that yourself. That's pretty self-explanatory, you know? Which, speaking of grade levels and semis, there is grade promotion. Grade promotions are basically how you level up your players and stuff. Now, there are 2 ways to focus on this, which the reason this is important is due to how actions work in this system. So the way you gain more actions in this system is that you don't, like, it's not based on your stats or something, it's based on your grade level. So once you reach semi-grade 1, you gain a second action. And presumably once you reach special grade, you get a third action, but that's besides the point. So because of that, there are 2 different ways to increase people's grade. Because here's the thing with grades. Grades are technically not a true reflection of someone's strength. Someone could be a grade 2 and have the strength of a grade 1. But the reason they're a grade 2 is due to story reasons, you know. However, there are still 2 different ways to increase someone's grade level. The first is by the DM giving it to them based on missions. So the way that would work is that the DM would say, hey, this is your rank up mission. If you complete this mission, you increase your grade level. Basically milestone style leveling from D&D, you know, once you reach a certain point, I will say you reached this grade level. That type of thing. You can also do stat-based progress, where basically whenever someone's stats equal or surpass the grade level standard array stats, that means you are at that grade level. So whenever you get 4, 4, 3, 2, 2 stats, or, you know, equivalents to those stat amounts, you become grade 2. Now, obviously, you should still include some type of story reason as to how they level up beyond just they wake up one day and, oh, you're a grade 2 now. You know, you should obviously have stuff like that. But those are the 2 different ways to do grade promotion. Oh, God. Archetypes. So, archetypes, as we said beforehand, are your classes. These are the things that determine your playstyle and generally what you are going to do in the system beyond having a CT, not having a CT, so on and so forth. Whenever you pick an archetype, you get to choose one of 2 different sub-archetypes. These are little things that differentiate the archetypes even amongst themselves. So because of this, you can have many different playstyles even among people from the same archetype. However, they're still going to look pretty similar because they share every other ability except for 2 different abilities for each sub-archetype you take. On top of that, whenever you choose an archetype, you get 2 permanent aptitudes, which permanent aptitudes are aptitudes that whenever you level up from training, they don't go away. Which again, we'll explain more of that in training. On top of that, you get starting equipment, which that's starting equipment. Everyone gets that if you pick a class. But a big thing, which is a little complicated, and do you want to take this away, HH? Do you want to explain multi-classing?
Give me a second. Yeah, multi-classing. Okay, so basically, you can choose a secondary class. Whenever you're working your class, you can have up to 2 different classes. But to deal with that, you have a certain total of ability slots. Like, for example, everyone that isn't a special grade or like a very like niche case should have about 5 ability. Should have a 5 ability slots exactly, which is just enough to gain every ability from a given class. But if you choose to multi-class, you can gain some abilities of a secondary class, but only the main abilities, that is, the abilities levels 2 through 4, and not including any of the subclass abilities. And they must be learned in order, so you cannot get the level 3 ability of a class without getting the level 2 ability first. So, for example, as you can see here in this little demonstration box that is here, you can see that the person starts with the Brawler, and chooses the Penguin subclass, and then they decide to multi-class into Unbreakable. Because Unbreakable is their secondary class, they cannot gain any of the sub-archetype abilities, so they instead learn the level 2 ability, like hitting a wall. Returning back to Brawler, they must learn then the level 2 ability, which would be Experienced Hands. Back to Unbreakable, the level 3 ability, Unending Stamina, and back to Brawler, the level 3 ability, there too. They cannot learn the level 4 ability of the Brawler, or any other abilities because they have used up all of their ability slots. So multi-classing sacrifices the later level abilities for more versatility, perhaps.
Yes.
Additionally,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah, all archetypes are scaling off a given stat level. So, for example, if you would scroll down here to the first one, down to Acrobat, if you could. Acrobat. It scales off speed. So, for example, the Untouchable or the Link are your level 1 abilities, which you can learn if you have a 1 in speed, which everyone has because everyone has a 1, starts with a 1. To learn a given ability, like for example, Ever Nimble, you would need the corresponding speed level as well as having learned any previous abilities. So, even if I have all 5, even if I multi-class into Acrobat, if I don't have a 3 in speed, I cannot learn Ever Nimble. So to reach the final level of a sub-archetype, it would be the stat level 5, which would mean that you need a 5 in the stat, which means that it's like fairly late game. So yeah.
And the way this works is, in order to get each level 5, you need to choose the corresponding archetype. So if you have the Untouchable, you can't get Got Your Back. If you want Got Your Back, you gotta choose the Link as your sub-archetype.
That's it. Now, you may notice that this would mean that your players are potentially locked into multi... If you want to be like super pedantic and optimal, a player might, for example, multi-class really early on because, you know, they can't get a bunch of abilities soon, and then they're locked out, but they're later locked out. It's up to you to decide if it's fair or not for them to reset their progress and like get a later ability anyways. No, like I don't know how I feel about that personally.
It's up
But
to
you know,
play style and all
that might come up. You know, that might come up, and you know, please discuss it with your players, like be reasonable and what have you.
Yeah. An aspect though that we kind of don't talk about a lot, even though it's kind of important. So basically, you only start out with 2 slots, no matter what. You start out with 2 slots. And as you level up your abilities, you get more and more slots unlocked. So if you start out, so right out of the gates, you start out with only 2 slots unlocked. Doesn't matter if you have a 3 in speed, you cannot get Ever Nimble, because your first 2 slots go to your sub-archetype and then your level 2 ability. No matter what. Even if you have a 4 in speed, you have 2 slots, so that's all they can go to. But if you level up, it doesn't even have to be speed. It can be any other stat. If you level up a stat, you automatically unlock another slot, and then you can put your stuff in. This kind of gets a little weird for higher grade stuff, because, like, wait a minute. So if I start out at a grade 1, I only get 2 slots? No. This is specifically for, like, grade 4, grade 3s who are really low level. Once you get to, like, grade 2, grade 1, ignore that rule. Just ignore it. It doesn't matter. Pretend you unlock them via leveling up your stats. That's more so, again, for lower level starting characters.
Generally speaking, it is like, let's say, kosher to say if a character is a grade 2, they have up to 4 slots, or they only get, and then a grade 1 gets all 5. Generally speaking, but that, like, if you want to give a full multi-class to a grade 2 character you're making, that's fine. It's just generally probably more interesting if you do it that way, because, you know, they still want to You can justify it by saying that they want to get the level 5 ability later or something like that.
Yeah. But onto archetypes. Whenever you choose an archetype, you get a starting permanent aptitude based on the archetype. I'm gonna be honest with you. We're not gonna go over every single archetype. There's a lot of them. So read through them. These are very good descriptions of what the archetype is about. On top of that, we have little images corresponding to a character per every archetype. So if you look at like, you know, let me go to if you go to like Rebel and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I see. So the Rebel plays kind of like Nobara or a Ghetto. Sure, Ghetto isn't this is not a good slide because this is more a personality thing than a combat thing.
Yeah, it's more so thematic here. Anyways, like a lot of these are
Prodigy's a better example of if you want to play like a Megami or a Yuta. There you go. That's what Prodigy does.
Yeah, primarily I would recommend reading the abilities anyways, because you'll probably make a more interesting character by trying to make an interesting combo of abilities rather than just like, oh, I want character move fast, so I choose class that say move fast. You know, like put on the thinking cap. Like you know what to do. You're smart. You're a smart guy.
If you don't like any of those archetype abilities, there is a homebrew archetype ability made by the Void on our Discord server that's linked here in the slide. These we didn't make these, so we don't balance them. That's up to Void. However, we kind of read through them and thought they were up to snuff enough to include in the system.
They're generally speaking pretty balanced. Yeah.
Yes.
These are like they have our tacit. It has our tacit approval.
Yeah. But if you come to us asking questions about any of these, we didn't make them, so we don't know.
You can technically make your own archetypes if you want to, but I would not recommend it because it's kind of difficult. Maybe.
Yes. On top of that, we made some more archetypes as DLCs. These are one we made in our 20-minute archetype challenge, which you can check out on the YouTube channel. There's like 2, maybe 3 interesting ones in these. That's about it.
We made 3, yes.
Yes, we made 3. Which, I mean, Oh
yeah, I made a martial artist too. Never mind, I had a martial artist.
Yeah, I was gonna say we made 4. We made 2 each, except for Justin, who didn't. But yeah, these ones. Okay, you know, my personal opinion, I think Con Artist is really cool, and you should totally use Con Artist because it's awesome. Same thing with like veteran martial artists.
I like martial artists because I made it.
Yeah, these are ones we made later on, but these are ones you can actually yell at us about because we did make these.
But also, no, because it's not that serious, and also like it's kind of decently balanced. I don't think I have. Like,
I think all these are decently balanced. Barrier Master is a little funky, but that's
a little
funky, but don't worry about it. Anyways,
you're gonna give. Yeah.
Oh Christ, curse energy.
We got to curse energy, guys. What is it?
Oh, we're a quarter of the way through. Okay. This is gonna be a 3-hour video, by the way. Jesus.
At least.
Okay. So, Curse Energy, or CE, is the main mana of Jujutsu Kaisen. If you watch Jujutsu Kaisen, you know what Curse Energy is. I'm not going to explain what Curse Energy is on a deeper level. But the way to utilize Curse Energy is to make a talent check, aka you roll your talent substat. The way you can use Curse Energy is to imbue your body to enhance your physical strikes and your physical capabilities. The whole enhance your physical capabilities is more a flavor thing, and it's like, oh, how was this person able to flip over a car? Curse Energy. You don't actually need to do anything with that. The only thing it affects is your damage. Which we will get into in CE applications. So, unlike in canon Jujutsu Kaisen, where a sorcerer just has their output, in this, output and imbue is separate. And output is used to calculate how well you can shoot your curse energy out in a condensed blast. This also applies to techniques and how well you can.
Wait, you didn't I'm just now noticing you didn't give this slide specifically. This is more the appearance over. That's really
Oh,
funny, actually.
whoops. Hang on, I can do it in a second.
It is just changing the font, but that is
Very
very
funny.
funny. That's
We forgot. We even changed the Ryu to be like a proper PNG
This
2
is-
and everything.
This is the wrong font.
Right, that's for the other system. Anyways, while I change this, do you want to describe what Imbue is?
Basically, Imbue is if output is the ability to blast out curse energy as like its own separate skill, Imbue would be your ability, your talent, your skill rather, at applying curse energy to physical objects, such as either a weapon or your very own body. So, uh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we
kind
go.
of
That's kind of it. We do go more into it in the next slide, where we actually describe the damage and effects you get from that.
yes.
So,
But that is to say, you use output primarily for a couple of curse skills in the C discharge line, and some CT abilities. You can you can add your output to a CT ability whenever if you want to increase its damage, but that should be like you need to add that to the ability itself. That is not like a you don't have to roll for it. It is just like a base component of the damage calculation.
yeah, it's not like curse. Whenever you are imbuing your physical body, you need to roll for it. Output, it
Yes.
should, for all intents and purposes, be included in the roll to activate the CT ability where you're using output.
Yes.
Which, speaking of
Also,
output,
sorcerer experience.
Oh,
It's a small concept, but whenever you're rolling to activate something related to curse energy, if it is below your technique level times 2, so for example, if I have a 5, anything below a 10, so 9 and
for
below,
DC specifically, the DC to
yes,
activate.
you automatically succeed in these DCs. You do not need to roll for
Yeah,
it.
this is to help stuff like if you're a grade 1 and you're trying to use a early level ability where it's like in DC 8.
Just so it's to reduce
can just
redundancy by like a little bit.
Yes. Which the
you
system
don't
does have a lot of redundancy, which if you I guess we should talk about this earlier. If you want to go check out, there is a effectively 2E version of this made by Justin, the guy who was just here a little while ago. It's called Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. You can find it in the description in our Discord on fan add-ons. In that system, he removes a lot of redundancy and stuff. So if you want to go,
Oh,
use
that's like he makes a lot of rulings that he would like to have like individually as a person.
yeah.
One of like that's we'll cover that later.
Which one of that is, loss of redundancy? and
How
all
many
that.
rows you have to do? Yes, maybe you
that's-
might like that one more, but
That's a whole. We'll get to that when we get to that, which we're probably not going to get to that because it's something. Anyway, so the damage you do is based on your level in output or imbue, which everyone starts out at level 1 at a base of 1d4 for output and imbue. In order to upgrade this to level 2 and level 3, oh Jesus, you need to go get a specific jutsu skill which increases this. This doesn't seem like a lot. A lot of people are going to look at this and go, oh, only 2d4 for 2 jutsu skills? It affects a lot. It quite affects a lot, especially when we get later on to coding and stuff like that. But it catches up on you. It really does. The base imbue DC for any ordinary attack is just TLX2. It's very easy to get because you're a sorcerer. You shouldn't fail imbuing unless it's like early on in the series, Imbue stacking is CE coding. Okay. This was something HH made as like a one-off idea, and it is arguably the most important part of the system and what separates it from a lot of different systems. Because basically, you are allowed to stack your curse energy either in a defensive way or offensively. So, if you are going in for a punch and you want to imbue, instead of just doing 2d4, you can increase the amount of damage you do with your imbue via stacking. So the way this works is for every other tech level starting at 1, you can add an additional stack to your damage or reduction, which we'll get to reduction in a little bit. What that means is you add an additional D4 per every other tech level you have, which the DC for that, for imbuing, increases by +2. However, even if you don't reach the DC you want, that doesn't mean you can't imbue. So if you want it, so let's say you have a tech of 4, and you want to stack twice. So that would mean it'd be a DC of 13. 12. It'd be a DC of 12. Let's say you roll a 10. Just because you roll a 10 does not mean you can't stack once or you can't imbue. You just can't stack twice because you didn't reach the DC. So it's less a DC of reach the DC and you can do it, and more so reach a DC to see how much you can do, per se.
Rather, to simplify this process, whenever you roll your imbue, if you get enough points above your minimum requirement, you can stack additionally more.
Yeah. On top of that, for
You don't have
every stack, it costs 3 extra curse energy.
As a trade-off.
Yes. Which that formula is right here. That's the formula.
CE coding is also debatably the most important reaction in the system. We'll get to reactions in a little bit later, but effectively, CE coding is a defensive move you can perform where you use the same logic of imbue stacking, but you can also alternatively use your output, and that is direct damage reduction to whatever incoming attack is happening. And the cost of it is, well, the stacking. The same stacking costs.
Yeah, same stacking costs. However, what makes this good is that it is raw damage reduction. Most attacks cannot get through coding. Some attacks can like prevent you from dodging or blocking. This is just straight up, if you want to have surefire damage reduction, you can code. And it is very, very important to the system.
Can I explain that? Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later.
Next up is Curse Energy Trait. So, Curse Energy Traits are a unique form of Curse Energy, where your Curse Energy gains a property based on whatever you want it to be based around. Which, keep in mind, a lot of these Curse Energy Traits should be like, you know, like rough, electric, like slick, sticky, fiery, hot, cold, so on and so forth. They should be more like that than like, I have confusing Curse Energy. It should be based on an element or some type of feeling, not
It is
like a
effectively
concept.
It is effectively a physical property of your curse energy, not a more conceptual or like abstract aspect to it.
Yes. And due to their unique properties, because of that, Curse Energy traits cost 2 Curse Energy to use if you naturally have a Curse Energy trait. Which means having a natural Curse Energy trait means in the starting off section, you chose to start off with a Curse Energy trait instead of a CT or anything else. That means it only costs 2 Curse Energy to use. However, if you choose to have a natural Curse Energy trait, you effectively cannot turn it off. No matter what, everything involving your Curse Energy will have that trait applied to it. And every time you use your Curse Energy, it will cost 2 Curse Energy. Now, this doesn't affect stacking to where like, oh, so the stacking become 5 Curse Energy instead of 3. No, it's however much you want to stack plus 2 Curse Energy. Now, there are ways to get a Curse Energy trait later on via a Jujutsu scale to get it unnaturally. This means you can turn your Curse Energy trait on and off and use a normal imbue action or use your Curse Energy trait. This is to basically make it so Curse Energy traits are a little more available so you don't have to start off without a CT, you know, if you want to have a Curse Energy trait and a CT, you can get a Curse Energy trait later in life. However, it costs 4 Curse Energy to use instead of 2. On top of that, Curse Energy traits have a unique property, which is that if someone is using Curse Energy to try to reduce the incoming damage, the Curse Energy trait goes through it. So basically, if someone was trying to coat an attack, the cursed energy damage would go through the coating, and it wouldn't be affected by the coating reduction at all. Technically speaking, this isn't how cursed energy trait works. That was kind of like a Kashimo only property, but they can do that now. So, yeah.
Primarily just think of it as the imbue damage that you deal is not reducible. Unless the target outright fully dodges the attack. You cannot reduce it to 0, for example. If I roll a 3 on my imbue, then they will always take at least 3 damage unless they fully dodge the attack.
Yeah. On top of that, cursed energy traits can be evolved and trained beyond their base application, similar to a CT, but keep in mind, these are not cursed techniques. They should be separate and not as powerful. There are a lot of people who make cursed energy traits that are just curse techniques, whenever there should be some difference in variety for the sake of enjoyment and being unique and making an interesting character that isn't just, I have a curse technique, but it's a curse energy trait. Speaking of those, give me 1 second. Okay, so there are 2 forms of training. Well, not 2 forms. There are 2 ways to evolve your curse energy trait. There is the mastery stage and an advanced mastery stage. Yes, I know, very unique. So advanced mastery, so just mastery is a way in which to take your curse energy trait beyond and give it a type of like new effect or a new attack. This is similar to what Kashimo did whenever he would punch people and charge up his punches so then he could do this sure hit lightning bolt. That's what mastery is. Advanced mastery is similar to that of like a maximum output, where it is the highest form of your curse energy trait. This is shown via like Kashimo outputting his curse energy at such a high frequency that it caused an explosion. That type of thing. There are rules for this, and as a curse energy trait evolves, it gets more damage and an increase in effects based on what you want it to do. But that's something you can read on your own, as there's a lot for that, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Next up, the big boys. Curse techniques. So, curse techniques. Curse techniques are a key part of this system, and they are the innate techniques, which are inherent to a sorcerer, or there can be bloodline techniques, which are techniques passed down from generation to generation in Jujutsu clans. So, I don't really know how to explain this, as this is such a key part of the system and a key part of Jujutsu Kaisen. If you have watched Jujutsu Kaisen or know anything about Jujutsu Kaisen, you know what CTs are. You know how they work, and these are the main combats of this system. A lot of people are going to have curse techniques. A lot of people are going to have different unique curse techniques. A lot of the system is built around curse techniques. If you don't know what a curse technique is, I highly recommend you go read or watch Jujutsu Kaisen to educate yourself on what a curse technique is. I guess I will say every curse technique does require some form of cost. Usually it's curse energy, but you can get unique with it and add your own little unique cost alongside curse energy. Curse technique types, these aren't like solid types you gotta follow. These are more so for helping people visualize what type of technique they want to create. And, well, there they are. You can read that yourself. CT ability limitations. So, basically, every time you make something beyond the base application of your curse technique, you gain, you create an ability, which an ability has an effect, DC to activate, and then cost. Typically speaking, your amount of abilities you can possess at one time is based on your tech level, as shown here. However, you do not need to follow these recommendations like gospel. If you're at a tech level of 2 and you have a really cool 6 ability, just let them have that 6 ability. It's fine to break it a little bit. These are soft recommendations instead of hard rules you gotta follow. They're basically there just to prevent people from creating 10 billion abilities that solve every issue, you know. Limits are a key part of Jujutsu Kaisen and also a key part of making interesting and unique abilities.
It also is helpful for a DM that wants to keep track of the player's abilities and doesn't have to try to remember 1 billion trillion things that they can make.
Yes. Also, I mean, you can make abilities that do several different things if you want, instead of a new ability for every new thing you come up with. Just like have a ability that could theoretically do several things. That's interesting. Much like curse technique types, these are categories for what the ability can do. You don't gotta follow these word for word. These are just examples to help you understand it better. Now, I'm gonna make this very clear for everyone in the back and for those who, I don't know, have hearing or reading issues. This is the slide that tells you the recommended amount of damage that you should do with your CT at each grade level. If you are confused about how much damage you should do, look at this slide. I'm going to say that again for people who didn't hear me. If you are confused about your damage, look at this slide.
It's a good recommendation of sorts.
Yes, you do not need to follow it word for word, bar for bar. You can have a little bit more damage, you can have a little less. However, if you need help with damaging and balancing how much damage you can do, look at this slide.
So as we've mentioned before, experience really is the best teacher in our system. So there's nothing wrong with making an ability, giving it a number, trying it out, and noticing, oh, it's a bit too strong or a bit too weak, and then readjusting accordingly with your DM later on.
Yes, because
You should do this.
You should do that.
It's pretty good. It's gonna make the game more fun for you and your friends. I assume you're playing with your friends, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, the same thing applies. Again, I'm going to scream this as loud as I can for everyone to hear. Same thing with CT damage costs and how much they apply. If you want to know how much curse energy an attack should take, that isn't like a maximum output, max tech, or domain expansion where we give explicit amounts, follow this as a general guideline. Obviously, you can have more, you can have less, based on the ability and what it does, because like effects and stuff are going to, you know, change it around, because like you can have an ability that does a d4 damage but has a busted effect, so it's going to need to cost more curse energy. We can't price effects, so you're going to have to kind of eyeball that. However, if it is a purely damage thing, you can base it off of this. Please base it off of this. If you want to get funky with it and do your own stuff, go ahead, you know. But please use this if you're confused about how much CT damage a ability should cost or be worth. I've had to answer far too many questions about this when you can just come here. So please come here if you have questions about that before you ask us.
I mean, if they're watching this video, I'd assume they wouldn't have too many questions, so...
Who can say? This is the same thing as damage, but it's specifically for status effects and all that, which tells you the maximum amount of status effects a CT can apply at once and how much that cost. Obviously, again, you don't need to follow these word for word. You can have an ability that applies 4 bleed instead of 2 bleed. Again, these are just our recommendations. And again, much like with everything else, but this one I don't have to scream as much about because people don't really ask us about these too much. Please look at these before you consider asking us about
It's
how
pretty
to
good.
stuff. Or ask your DM. For God's sake, so many people don't talk to their DMs. I'm getting on my soapbox about this. If you are confused about something and you don't know how to balance it, please talk to your DM. They're probably going to know more than us because we don't know this power level of your game. Ask your DM.
A very big problem for balancing is that because so much of the system is rule light and created by the players / DMs, it is incredibly hard to get what would be quote unquote balance or fair in a given setting because I do not understand the corresponding. We lack the corresponding context. An ability that causes that does stun for free with no saving throw against it sounds incredibly imbalanced in my opinion. But if everything else in your campaign is of a similar power level, then it is implicitly more balanced because of that. So your DM is generally going to be the best judge. And if you have any questions about that, like give as much context as possible. And even then, it's like not nearly enough because you can't really condense the abilities of your entire campaign in like a single Discord message, for example. It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah. However, why do we have AoE cost in here? What? Oh, this is CT. I thought this was CT depletion because of this image. I'm not gonna lie to you, but this isn't.
No, this is how you see, this is how I felt when I finished this part because I made it. I remember.
Yes. This is range / AoE cost, much like everything above. This is how much curse energy you should spend to increase your range of the ability, or how much AoE you can hit someone in. Typically, on average, curse techniques have like a 20 to 30 foot range at base for free, and then once you go beyond that or below that, you add more curse energy or subtract more curse energy from it based on your, how much you want to apply to it. Chanting. Okay. Chanting. So chanting is something you can apply to curse techniques after creating a curse technique, or apply it to a curse technique as a type of restriction to it to make it stronger. The way chanting works is that you basically give up an action to do hand signs or say something, recoil, twin meteors, polarized light, 9 ropes, so on and so forth.
Effectively, any type of quote-unquote prep that you need to give a certain ability.
Yes. Which that can also be beyond just chanting and hand sighting. Like, you could count, like, requiring to have, X amount of leaves or something like that as chanting. You could technically do that if you want,
Well, that's like
that's
resource
that's a different
question, but primarily, you spend some time doing something in order to increase the damage of your improve the effects of your technique.
Yeah, typically it increases the damage. That's what most of these things do, but it can also increase range, increase damage, as we said, give a new effect, decrease the cost. It's up to you and what the ability wants. This is basically a way to make your ability stronger in some way, shape, or form via by using up extra actions. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
It's, the more time you spend on something, like the trade-off needs to be better. It needs to be gooder.
Yes, that too. You shouldn't.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, basically, you shouldn't spend an action to get like 3 times damage. If you want a better effect, you should spend longer and longer on it.
Yes, 3 times damage would be too much for reference. Like, chanting, one turn of chanting should be like 1.2 times if you're adding multipliers to the mix to begin with. It should probably just be like a couple of flat dice, man.
Yes. And then there are advanced curse techniques in their application. Extension techniques are... Okay, so in canon, extension techniques are just any application of the CT that is not the base application of it. We don't do that in this system because it'd be kind of asinine to constantly say extension technique after everyone. So in our canon, extension techniques are different applications of the base CT. It is using them in different ways, such as like straw doll resonance, ratio technique collapse. They are technically the same technique, but you're using it in a different application. Then there are the big guns. First off, maximum output is something you can only gain via a Jujutsu skill. Extension technique, you can make as many extension techniques as you want. Maximum outputs, typically you should only make like 1 to 2, maybe 3 maximum outputs. in order to even make a maximum output, you need a Jujutsu skill. That doesn't mean if you want to make a second maximum output, you need 2 maximum output Jujutsu skills. You just need 1, and then you're allowed to make maximum outputs. Typically, people have 1 maximum output. You can have 2, you can have 3, whatever, based on the CT. So, maximum outputs at a baseline without any effect do 3d10 plus tech level plus output times 2. Obviously, that damage can decrease if you want to add effects or add a, more AoE, more range, so on and so forth. These are basically stronger versions of techniques that already exist. It is you putting the maximum of curse energy you physically can into your CT and then hitting someone with it or getting a unique effect, so on and so forth. After using a maximum output, there is a drawback of having CE exhaustion for 1 full round. I should probably say round instead of, well, no, turn. You don't get over CE exhaustion until the start of your next turn. That is important, actually, compared to round. Next up, our maximum technique. So first off, to get a maximum technique, not only do you need the Jujutsu skill, you have to have a tech level of 3 or higher to even get a maximum technique. However, because of that, these maximum techniques do a lot more damage. These things do D12's level of damage. Much like maximum outputs, if you want just something that does sheer, raw, single target damage, you're going to be doing like 3d12 plus tech level x2 plus output of damage. However, as you add more and more effects, the damage should go further and further down. As you add more effects, more AoE, more range, so on and so forth. And unlike maximum outputs, these things give you 2 turns of exhaustion, which means until your next turn, you remove CE exhaustion. And then there is the explanation for CE exhaustion and CT burnout. CE exhaustion makes it so that you roll disadvantage for anything related to CE until you remove CE exhaustion, which that applies to activation rules of your curse technique, that applies to imbuing, coding, not the damage though, just the activations. And then there is CT burnout. So, okay. In canon, a CT burnout makes it so that it is harder to use your curse technique. You can technically still use your curse technique, it's just a lot harder to use. Excuse me. However, in this system, we changed it so that you cannot use your technique, period. If you enter CT burnout, you cannot access your technique at all, no matter what. However, CT burnout is a lot harder to get, as you can only gain CT burnout via doing a domain expansion. And then complete depletion of the CE happens, aka CE depletion, happens whenever you have 0 curse energy, as in you no longer have any curse energy in the tank. Now, this is different from people like Maki and Toji who have 0 curse energy, who have no curse energy at all. This means you have curse energy, just there is nothing left in the tank for you to use. Whenever you do reach this state, first off, you cannot kill curses unless you have a curse tool, because you can't imbue your body, which means you can't kill them. All martial arts damage dealt is halved, and weapons deal 25% less damage due to you not being able to properly reinforce the body. And yeah, that's about it. Alright, so training your curse technique is a key part of this system. This is something you're going to spend a lot of time doing. So, a key part of Jujutsu as a whole is addition and subtraction. The way to make a stronger curse technique is subtracting more and more away while also gaining its maximum amount of effort. So because of that, you can spend a day slot to go and train your curse technique. And the way to train your curse technique is up to how your curse technique works. Overall, a lot of time you're either decreasing the cost of the technique, increasing the damage, or you're creating a whole new technique, not a whole new technique, a whole new ability as a whole. Obviously, there are other ways you can train it and other ways, other effects you gain, but those are the key ones we see a lot. So, the way to train a curse technique is quite simple. Basically, every technique has... Okay. So a player will walk up to their DM and say, hey DM, I want to spend my training slot training my technique to do X. The DM then looks at what X is, and depending on how complex or how difficult X is, depends on how many training slots they have. How many training slots, aka how many times they need to train to achieve that effectively, which is listed right here. Yeah, based on the curse technique and based on what they want, determines how many training slots it takes up. And in order to remove / reach one of those training slots is to beat a DC set by the DM where you roll talent. So the DM... So as soon as the player walks up and says, hey, I want to train my curse technique, the DM sets how many slots it takes to get that ability and what the DC is they need to beat with their talent in order to succeed that training and count it as a training slot, effectively. And that's about it. Overall, our recommendations for how many day slots / training slots you give is like 2 a day, and that's about it. You know, you shouldn't give them more than that, as it... This is a system that can snowball very quickly. If you give your players too many training slots, their curse techniques can become absolutely busted. Same thing with their stats and stuff, so you might want to be careful with how many training slots they get. But, yeah. This is a really complicated slide, so a lot of stuff you're going to have to do is just eyeball it and kind of hope it works. If not, please read this. Go to the system and read it. Now, positive energy. So, positive energy is the opposite of curse energy, and you get that by multiplying a negative and a negative, or negative curse energy by negative curse energy, creating positive curse energy. The main application of this is reverse curse technique, which is a form of Jujutsu that heals people. Specifically, this heals someone 1d10 at base, and then the d10 can increase based on the level of your RCT proficiency. This is a Jujutsu skill you get, so you can't just naturally unlock it. You have to gain this via a Jujutsu skill and presumably some story beat to explain how you have RCT. On top of that, you can do curse technique reversal, which basically it does the opposite of what your technique initially does via applying positive energy to your curse technique, creating a brand new ability. And much like RCT, curse technique reversal is a Jujutsu skill that you have to go and get. This is something that I can't really go that much depth into because it's RCT. If you watch Jujutsu Kaisen, you know what RCT is, and I really don't gotta explain what RCT is. Binding vows. Now we get into the most controversial part of the system. Okay. So binding vows is an agreement you can make with oneself or someone else to affect something. Okay? So, binding vows can theoretically let you do whatever you want. However, if you want to do something, you should have an equal trade-off. So for instance, if you want your curse technique range to increase by 2, you want it to double. Well, you can make that a binding vow, and now, hey, your curse technique is doubled. However, the cost has increased by +5, or like +8. You know, there should be an equal trade-off for everything. Binding vows can also be used to do stuff like, double the damage of my next attack with my punch. However, I'm not allowed to use any PL martial arts for the rest of the day. Binding vows are something DMs should be very strict on and should be careful whenever players make, because there are a lot of times where a player can just make some BS up and beat your boss because you let them have a binding vow that they shouldn't have to make. So please, whenever you are making a binding vow, keep in mind that there needs to be an equal trade-off for what you are doing, and sometimes that just making a binding vow is a really boring answer. On top of that, you can make binding vows with each other, which is basically a promise or a pact that they can't break no matter what. Well, they can't break it, but something bad will happen. Next off, we go to the advanced form of binding vow, which is Heavenly Restriction. So, oh god, okay, Heavenly Restrictions. So, much like in the series canon, a Heavenly Restriction is a type of binding vow placed upon someone's body whenever they are born into this world. Technically speaking, you can give your character, a Heavenly Restriction off the bat for no cost other than the drawback of the Heavenly Restriction, which, keep in mind, much like binding vows, these things should have drawback. However, these things should specifically relate to your body or your curse technique, or both. They should affect that in some way, shape, or form, you know. And binding vows can vary in different effects and what they do, and their strength and their weaknesses. However, binding vows should have a meaningful trade-off and should be meaningful to the character. Don't just give your character a Heavenly Restriction for the fun of it. Make sure it actually like influences the plot and does something to the story and the character, and it isn't just a free +2 to hit. Also make sure your trade-off is actually meaningful. For instance, Mechamaru and Maki. Mechamaru physically cannot interact with people socially and is in constant living hell due to his binding vow. However, he gets a lot of curse energy in an absurd range. Maki, due to her lack of curse, like, Maki's doesn't seem that bad. Like, oh yeah, you don't have curse energy, but you have such a crazy body, you know, you're basically unstoppable and probably stronger than most sorcerers who have a curse technique and curse energy. That's true. However, due to Maki's lack of curse energy, she was ostracized from her family and was seen as an embarrassment who was stuck at grade 4 for the entirety of her life because they wouldn't let not only a woman, but someone without a curse technique advance in this world. There needs to be story and character related trade-off to these Heavenly Restrictions, and you shouldn't just make them for fun. We do give examples of Heavenly Restrictions, and there are kind of levels to these. There are like the Heavenly Restrictions that aren't as severe, but they do give you some type of buff and some type of drawback, and then there are ones which, you know, we're going down the list of the higher and higher you go, the more the trade-offs should affect you, and the more the buffs you get. Overall, we don't recommend you go into the high, probably not even the medium of severity most of the times, as Heavenly Restrictions can just completely destroy the balance that a DM has tried to create. Here are more examples. Creation guide. I already spoke about that up there. Please, God, make your Heavenly Restrictions meaningful and have a proper trade-off. Here's the do and don'ts. You should read these if you plan on making a Heavenly Restriction. Please, God, read these. Now, developing your Heavenly Restriction. This is something that technically isn't a thing in canon. Whenever you get a Heavenly Restriction, you were stuck with that Heavenly Restriction, you can't grow it. Maki's was able to grow, but that was due to strange circumstances. However, that's really boring. If you start off with like a busted Heavenly Restriction, you can't really do anything because you're so strong. And if you have a weak Heavenly Restriction, at a certain point, that Heavenly Restriction won't affect your gameplay as you get higher and higher level. So, a way to get around that is to start off with an incomplete Heavenly Restriction. This basically means you start off with a much weaker Heavenly Restriction that can eventually grow into something stronger. Now, you shouldn't treat these like something you train. You can't train a Heavenly Restriction. It is something that is a part of your very core, your very being. So the way to make it, to grow the Heavenly Restriction and make it stronger is via realizing your Heavenly Restriction by going through some type of dramatic story beat or event which grows you as a person and dramatically affects you. For instance, Maki losing Mai was a major part of her story and completely changed Maki as a character. In this comic, in this non-canon comic shown here, which you should check out right here, it showed that Toji unlocked his true heavenly restriction via being on the verge of death and almost dying and deciding to throw it all away and give up on life so he can grow and continue to live, aka realizing his heavenly restriction. You should give this realized heavenly restriction as some type of major character story beat. It shouldn't just be
rather
something
he
you do
already
for fun.
had all the tools, he just didn't know how to use
That too.
them, for example.
That too. It shouldn't just be a straight power up. It could, like, oh, your heavenly restriction now it gives you +4 to hit instead of +1. It should get creative with it. Be like, oh, I didn't realize I could do this and that with my heavenly restriction instead of just it's a straight power boost. Get creative with it.
Yes, as you grow in skill, the more you can do. So it is effectively just a way to gate progression a little bit so you don't have an absurdly overpowered person right off the bat that immediately makes every combat encounter either a breeze or incredibly lopsided for every other player because they're the only ones that can handle the problem. That is kind of the innate problem and what we try to tackle with this as developing as a mechanic as a whole. An attempt to make this a proper thing you can use in a campaign without breaking progression in half or just being unpleasant to deal with, really.
Yeah, it is a little hard to balance.
It's really hard to make. It's really hard to balance this because the two characters we know that have the three characters we know that have heavenly restrictions are special grades because of it. So
Yeah. But with that, we move on to Shikigami. So Shikigami is something you can add to your curse technique. You can base a whole curse technique around. Typically, people don't just have an ability that summons a curse technique and to summon a Shikigami in a ability that typically isn't a summon ability, but you can. That's up to technique and what you want to do. But overall, Shikigami are little minions or creatures you can summon to help you fight. Huh?
Are you okay?
I'm fine. Yeah, wow, I've been talking for an hour and a half straight. I'm a little dying here, but we got this. So, Shikigami are little minions or creatures you can add to help you aid in battle. Typically, whenever you create a Shikigami, you should go look at the curse creation slide and just use those stats for creating the Shikigami of whatever grade level you want, but just remove curse healing and curse actions and curse skills. Typically, they don't have that as they're not curses, they're Shikigami. But they do get unique skills based on the CT, so on and so forth. Typically, you cannot summon a Shikigami of a grade level higher than you unless there is some type of extreme cost, Maharaga, for example. Don't add a Maharaga to your CT. There are going to be a lot of people that are like, I summon a CT. Ooh, I should have a Maharaga. Don't add a Maharaga. Okay? Don't. Don't. Be unique and different and don't just copy 10 Shadows, even though it's a very good example for how Shikigami CT can do more than just summoning CTs and the unique theming they have and so on and so forth. Overall, Shikigami typically have one action, maybe two if they're a really strong CT, a really strong Shikigami later on in your progression. Typically they have one action, and whenever a Shikigami is summoned, they do not gain an action when they are summoned. They have what we like to call, which I just stole from Magic the Gathering, Shikigami sickness, where whenever they are summoned, they cannot use actions, but they can use reactions. This basically keeps it balanced because it typically takes an action to summon a Shikigami. So, it keeps it from, I use my action. Anyway, time to use my second action right off the gate. Add some balance to it, On top of that, typically, Shikigami share the same CE pool that the user does. They can have their own CE pool if they want. Again, Shikigami can be whatever you want and design it however you want. They can be as complex as, like, New Shadow style. They can be as simple as Judge Man. It's up to you, really. Curse corpses. Okay. So this is a lot different from the old curse corpses. This is the thing we changed the most in the most recent update. I don't even know where to begin with these. Okay. So, curse corpses, or puppets, are basically a robot made of curse energy in whatever parts you find, and you give it life. Or you use your technique to move that puppet around. These things are different from curses in the way they act and react, and that is due to how you have to build them, and you build them using scraps and parts you find around that give these creations their own unique effects and such. Typically speaking, you can only create a a cursed corpse at your level. You cannot go beyond that unless you get surpassing the creator. Cursed corpse creation, it's a lot, and I don't want to go through all this, but to basically summarize it, the damage cursed corpses typically do is level 1 to 2 martial art damage. They typically don't go beyond that, so keep that in mind whenever creating them. At a baseline, cursed corpses start off with 10 HP, 4 AC, and 1 in every stat. On top of that, cursed corpses can't go more than 30 feet away from their master until you get the ability to... Unless they get the ability to function on their own. Basically, every time you want a cursed corpse to do something, you must spend an action to tell it what to do until you unlock the ability in which cursed corpses can act on their own. Which, depending on what level you create the cursed corpse, depends on what stats they get and how much material it takes to make them. So in order to create one, you must spend training slots to build it, and not training slots, day slots. You spend slots to build it, add material to it, and once you spend enough slots, you make the thing. In order to add a single piece of material, it takes a day slot, so keep that in mind. Yeah, that's about it. Well, not about it. There's a lot more, but again, this is something that I recommend you read on your own, as this is a lot, and I don't want to explain it all. Repair and destruction, pretty simple. If a cursed corpse reaches 0 HP, it gets a stack of destroyed, which means it cannot function. In order to remove a stack of destroyed, you must spend 2 training slots repairing it. Every time you remove a stack of destroyed, it regens 50% HP, and whenever it is fully repaired, not even fully repaired, just you can spend time repairing it, it heals 40% energy, because unlike humans, cursed corpses don't, regen HP from sleeping. You gotta, actually spend time to fix them. Programming and upgrading. So if you spend 3 training slots, you can give cursed corpses their own actions, and they can act on their own and go beyond the 30-foot limit needed for you giving them actions. Upgrades take training slots, and they upgrade your cursed corpse. Read through all of these on your own. I'm not going to read through all of them. Material is something you add to your cursed corpse to build them, and every time you add a material to them, they get stronger, either gaining more HP, more AC, or gaining unique effects. I apologize for this being a little brief. There's a lot to these, and it would take me forever to talk about all this, and I can already feel my throat slowly dying, and I'm slowly losing my voice. So I'd rather keep it and talk about training. So, training / leveling up the stat. So, every time you are... So, unlike other systems where you level up via the DM, via like XP or milestone, the way you level up your stats in this system is via training. So, the way to... Let me actually go get a character sheet, as that is probably a little more easier to understand. Here. So, let's say this. Let's say you want to go up to a power level of 4, and you're at 3. That means every single aptitude must be filled. And the way to gain an aptitude is to train your substat. In order to train a substat, you must beat a DC for however many times you have in that level. So for instance, if you want to get an aptitude in strength, you must roll strength and beat a DC set by the DM 3 times. Once you beat it 3 times, you get an aptitude. And every training, no matter what it is, consumes a training slot. So in order to get an aptitude in strength, you have to use up 3 training slots, succeeding a strength DC set by your DM. And the more creative you get with training, the more easier the DC should be. So if you get creative with training, or if you include other people in your training, the DC should probably be lowered. Once all these slots are filled up, all of your non-permanent stuff, all of your non-permanent aptitudes, aka the aptitudes you did not get from your stats, not from your stats, what you didn't get from your archetype, goes away, and you've got to start all over again. However, once all these fill up, you go from a 3 to a 4. And that applies for any stat. Where is it? There it is. And whenever you do gain an aptitude in a stat, you get a +2 bonus in that stat. Aptitudes equal +2 unless you get an ability, a XP skill that doesn't make that. Train time and free time. So typically in a day, there are 3 slots: morning, afternoon, and evening. 2 of those are typically used for laborious training, such as power, speed, technique, or CT training, while the afternoon and last one should be saved for lighter tasks, such as intelligence or cooperations, or RPing with other people. You do not need to follow this. You can have as many time slots as you want. You can have as minimum time slots as you want. You can have as many training slots as you want. You can have as minimum training slots as you want. However, we recommend 2 training slots for the laborious stuff, and then 1 training slot for the lighter task. It is up to you what you want to do as a DM. However, keep in mind, if you let your players have too many of these, they can level up incredibly fast and beyond what you are capable of. Which is why I personally recommend you stat cap them. So be like, hey, you can only have 2 4s, and that's it. Stat cap them, keep on raising the stat cap so they don't potentially completely shatter your balance. And once they reach the stat cap, they can go and train their CT, a new martial art, or anything of the sorts like that. On top of that, they can use these free time / training slots for anything. If you want to go work at a job, you can go work at a job to get more pay, so on and so forth. Combat and action economy. As we said before, you roll initiative with tempo, and a round lasts on average 30 seconds in canon. Actions are quite simple in the system. Every turn, all characters have the chance to use their movement speed freely, as well as do 1 action. Starting out, eventually you get 2 to 3 actions. Be it anything labeled in action, like attacking, using a curse technique, or anything you want to do that DM deems significant enough to be an action. Additionally, you may hold an action should you want to act at a specific time or to a specific thing coming towards you. So for instance, if someone's out of your melee range, you can say, okay, I'm going to hold my action to punch him as soon as he gets within my melee range. You can do that. However, if your held action requirements do not get met, that held action goes away and you effectively wasted that action. There's also bonus action. You get one bonus action per turn, and these are basically smaller actions. These are things that are not significant enough to count as an action, but are still more significant than a free action. Here's all the basic actions you can do. Stealthing, dashing, which doubles your movement speed, pressing, which is a bonus action where you can specifically target a person and then make it so if that person doesn't hit you specifically, they gain negatives based on what abilities you've selected to affect your pressing. At base, pressing is just a -2 to hit anyone other than you, and it deals +2 damage and +1 to hit against you, basically encouraging people to hit you. Pressing is something tanks are going to want to do a lot. Okay, reactions when things gets a little complicated compared to other systems. So, everyone has limited amount of reactions that refresh at the start of their turn. Reactions are equal to your speed level. So if you have a 3 in speed, you have 3 reactions. If you have a 5 in speed, you have 5 reactions. Resisting secondary effects of an action, of an attack, does not count as a reaction. And if an attack beats your AC while you have 0 reactions left over, that means you have to just take the damage in full and you cannot react to it because you ran out of reactions. Under most circumstances, you are only allowed to react in one way to an attack, meaning you have to choose only one of these base reactions or a custom CT reaction should you have one, because some CTs can be used as a reaction to either like reduce damage, help you in some way with another reaction. Those reactions are blocking, dodging, leaping, and curse energy coding. So, blocking is a power-based reaction where the character rolls their power stat. Now, that does not mean you roll a substat, you roll power, as in no aptitudes. If you meet or beat the roll to hit from the attacker, you deal half. The attack coming in is half, and you only take half damage. So meet or beat with a power roll against an attack roll that was used against you. Dodging is a speed-based reaction where, again, you roll just speed, no aptitudes, to beat the roll to hit. If you successfully dodge, though, since it is harder to do, you take 0 damage instead of half damage. However, unlike blocking, where if you fail a block roll, you just take the damage in full, if you fail a dodge roll, you take 1.5 times damage from the incoming attack. So it is a greater reward at a higher risk. Then there is leaping. Leaping is a supportive reaction in which the user rolls their reflex substat against an attack within 15 feet of you. Roll to hit minus the leaper's PL or SL is the required DC to beat to get the leap off. Once you leap an attack, you can jump in front of it and take the damage, and you can still react to that attack that you leaped. However, you cannot dodge the attack, so you either have to block, coat, or use some type of CE reaction. If a Shikigami uses this reaction and their HP reaches 0, any leftover damage will affect the original target. Basically, it carries over if a Shikigami is leaping. CE coding is a technique reaction, which is explained on the other side. Okay, so status conditions. Status conditions are a type of debuff that applies to a target or yourself, depending on what type of status effect you want to give yourself. Typically, it's either Fortitude for physical checks and then Perceptions for mental. If you block an attack that applies a status effect, that should give you advantage to resist it if you successfully block the attack. And if you reduce the damage of the attack to 0, that typically means you don't get the status effect applied to you, but that kind of depends on the curse technique and all that. Typically, once the attack reaches 0, they, it doesn't...
They don't have any effects. Now, you can't... Generally speaking, every status affliction should have some type of roll to resist them. It doesn't... We give, like, Fortitude and Perception are pretty good guidelines, but, like, if you want to use a different stat or, like, have multiple stats that can be rolled to resist it, that's good. Alternatively, we can... In some cases, it does make for good game design if your status condition does not have a saving throw of any type and it's simply applied. But if it is like that, then you probably shouldn't make it like something too overpowering. It should be like a core gimmick to your either the playstyle or the fight itself, assuming like you're playing.
Also make it so like either you can use like a bonus action or something to remove the status effect, or like it goes away. It gets like half at the end of the turn. Yeah.
Yes.
And then here are all the status effects and what they do. Just read through these if you want to know what the status effects are. And
these are not all the okay, well, technically these are all the status effects we've made as like recommendation, as like starting off points. All of these work perfectly fine. I really recommend you should make your own status effects, especially if it's something about buffs, because that just makes everything a lot easier and more fun. It's really fun to play with status effects, actually.
Yeah. I will say the ones you typically shouldn't put on status, you typically just shouldn't add, are like Stun, Frozen, Complete Blindness. Those are typically ones, if you're gonna add them, you should add them to like a bigger attack or something of the sorts, you know?
Or a pure status effect inflicting move.
Or yeah, a pure status effect inflicting move, just to how strong they are. That these are pretty strong effects and you shouldn't just get them for free.
Strong, and they can be quite debilitating. If you're hit with them, it does sometimes not feel great because, well, you can't do it. For example, if you're stunned, you can't do anything for a turn, so people sometimes avoid that, but they're also, it's a case-by-case thing.
Mm.
Primarily, you shouldn't be using them too much in, like, 1v1s or what have you, but, like, for campaigns, that's kind of fun.
Yeah. And then... curse tools. Curse tools are pretty self-explanatory. They're weapons and such which you can use in combat, and they sometimes have a unique effect based on the curse tool that isn't... Okay. So typically speaking, a basic curse tool is just a sword, but it has cursed energy flowing through it. That's the typical curse tool. Curse tools can get CTs applied to them, kind of like the thing in the manga during Shinjuku, which I can't talk about because that's technically kind of a spoiler, but the Nanami thing. Yeah, you can have a curse tool can gain a CT, which you can slowly gain and give a curse tool a CT if you read in training, or it's here. It's
in the next slide.
It's in the next slide, so we'll talk about that in the next slide. However, if a curse tool does get a CT, they automatically become special grade rating level, but that doesn't mean they have special grade stats. You can give a curse tool a CT without making it a special grade damage output, effectively.
Primarily for balancing purposes.
Yeah, for balancing purposes. On top of that, I do recommend giving curse tools unique effect, like Maki's Bone Drew, was it? Or
Flame Bone? No, not Flame Bone.
No, Flame Bone.
Dragon Bone?
Dragon Bone, yeah, Dragon Bone. Like Maki's Dragon Bone, where it had little repulsion, stuff like that. You can give curse tools unique effects that aren't CTs if you want. And I honestly do recommend that, because it makes them a lot more interesting, give them unique effects. Like, oh, if you crit on this gun, you like fire out another attack or something, you know, get unique with them and make them interesting. And there are ways in which to make curse tools. The most typical way to make a curse tool is to grab a normal weapon and then imbue it X amount of times in combat, and once you do that enough times, you can eventually create a curse tool, or if you train with it, which is the requirements are listed here, so read them. On top of that, you can do the same thing with applying your own curse technique to a curse tool. It's a similar thing to creating a curse tool, however, it's much more, it takes a little longer to create, because applying a curse technique is a lot better than just turning a normal weapon into a curse tool. Next up is curse tool damage, which is incredibly similar to CT damage and all that. So typically, okay, curse tools are the one thing where typically you should probably follow this as closely as you can due to just how strong curse tools can get. Because like even if you look at medium weapons, if you look at a grade 2 medium weapon, that is a flurry of blows on every single attack. So you got to keep that in mind whenever you're making this, because flurry of blows has like a 1-turn cooldown. This does not have a 1-turn cooldown. Instead, it's just, you can just do that for every single attack. So typically speaking, you want to give people like a curse tool that's a grade level lower than them on average. That kind of keeps things a little more balanced. I forgot we had a workshopping. I'm not even going to lie to you. This is just
Yes. So basically, because with how we set up curse tools in the system, it means that its primary damage scales mostly off the original weapon, which means that you can't improve it over time. It doesn't become it doesn't increase in damage. But because some people like carrying a certain weapon around instead of just like replacing them with stronger ones, like just in case like they have a cool unique effect you want to carry over even at the late game, we added a mechanic to we sort of recommend how to increase their damage over time. And so yeah, you pay a little fee and you lose access to the weapon for a couple of days, and then it comes back stronger for not they're working on it. They're making it gooder.
yes, typically.
And yeah.
Martial art and weapon arts. So this is the aspect that really goes heavy into the combat of the system, which is that instead of just like, basically unlike in something like D&D 5e where you have spells and weapons that do set damage, we have weapons that do set damage, of course, but the main form of combat is going to be martial arts. Martial arts is basically certain type of attacks and abilities that you can do that then go on cooldown, and they're of course tied to martial arts. Weapon arts are also similar to martial arts, but instead of doing damage, they make it so that your weapon can apply a unique effect based on it. And unlike martial arts, which have cooldown, weapon arts have use per encounter. Right here are the weapon arts that apply to any type of weapon. So no matter what weapon you're using, you can use these weapon arts as long as you have the level requirement, the stat requirements for it, which the WS is just what stat you were rolling when you were using your weapon. So if you were using a close range melee weapon, you would use PL to scale it. If you were using a range weapon, it would be SL. And if you are using a pole arm, I think you can choose either or. I'm pretty sure. No,
pole arms. No, pole arms.
You would just use. You would just use PL.
Yes, it is just like it's just a weapon stat. The stat of the bonus of the damage. Because pole arms might be like speed or like technique or power, and like in that case you can do whichever one of those because they kind of fit every category, so to speak. But they do all roll power to hit.
Yeah.
These are primarily utility, I guess. It should be noted again.
Yeah, all these are
because you already have the consistency and damage from your weapon.
Yeah. There is bludgeoning, which is either for bludgeoning weapons. Then there are slashing for sword slashing weapons, shot for range weapons, and then pole arms for pole arms. A lot of these are pretty self-explanatory. And yeah, whenever you reach that status, not the status, I keep on saying status. Whenever you reach that stat level, you automatically unlock that weapon art if you have that weapon. Which it doesn't mean like let's say you're primarily a gun user and then you grab a sword. Technically speaking, you can still use weapon arts as slash if you have the stat requirement. But, I mean, there is no but. Just like, yeah, you can do that. You know, it's not like, oh, but I use weapon arts as shot, so that means I can't use weapon arts as slash. You can use all of these weapon arts theoretically if you have the stats for them.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, theoretically you could, but like typically speaking, people focus on one thing and they kind of just do that thing because it
Mostly
kind of
you just don't have the stats to distribute.
you typically don't have the stats to do that. Yeah, no, or the weapons on you to do something like that. You would need like several different weapons to even think of doing that. Or who knows? Maybe you get like a gun sword so you can do weapon art or shot and slash. Who can say?
What are you? A gun sword? That's that'll be ridiculous. Anyways, regular martial arts are like I feel are pretty self-explanatory. Is as we mentioned, they have a round cooldown. So if you use, for example, Flurry of Blows, it has a 1 round cooldown, which means that the round after you use it, you cannot use it again. You need to wait out a round. Some of them don't have cooldowns, which means that you can't use them as much as you want. Some of them require contested rolls, like for example, Judo Throw is a strength versus against your target. Headbutt is a strength versus as well.
Yeah.
And the most notable ones would be the cooperation.
I was gonna say co-op is something we should probably talk about because those are ones that
Yes.
like kind of break the system a little bit, slightly.
No, they just work differently.
They work
Don't be rash now. Anyways, for these, there are also contested rolls, except the attacker rolls stealth or deception, whichever one they want to use, and then you are forced to use perception or insight respectively against them. So, for example, if I use stealth, you must roll perception, and if I use deception, you must roll insight. If the attacker wins this versus, then the attack happens. Obviously, it automatically hits, and the deception or stealth roll is considered the roll to hit of the attack. So if you want to use it for the purposes of blocking or dodging, you'd try to contest that. So if I roll 23 stealth, you must beat a 23 to dodge or to block.
Yeah. And if you fail the VS roll, I'm pretty sure the martial arts just doesn't happen because you.
Correct. Yes. If I try to do a versus and I lose, I get fucked.
Basically.
Because it's a versus. You know, you gotta win.
Yes, and then there are the higher tier martial arts, which require you to have 2 stats at level 5 in order to unlock them. So this isn't you need speed or cooperation to use Taishen Kao. No, you need speed and cooperation level 5. Same thing with all of these. That
is what the end means.
Very
yes,
obviously
correct.
Yeah. There's also the strongest martial
also,
arts.
Are generally speaking only once per combat, as opposed to having they more so resemble the previously aforementioned weapon arts because they are pretty strong.
They are.
So if you could use these like any cooldown rate, it'd either be like way too high, so like it wouldn't matter anyways, or it would just be like overpowered.
Yeah.
Some of these also have additional penalties, such as being stunned for 1 action the next turn. Generally speaking, we say 1 action because we forgot to mention, yes, stuns affect you for 1 action, and they do not affect you for the whole turn. If you have 2 actions and you have 1 stun, you can act once on your round.
I think we put that in next to the stun.
It's written down, but you didn't mention it.
I guess I didn't mention it. Yeah.
I feel like it's meaningful because I think that works differently from D&D. I don't.
I think D&D's full turn. I'm pretty sure D&D's.
I
don't know. I think D&D's full turn because that's why it's like, oh my god, stun's so strong. Okay, because typically in D&D you do have just 1 action. In our system, we get several actions. I think even at like
pretty sure in D&D you get 2 actions. No, you get 2 attacks.
You get 2 attacks, but not actions. Yeah, that's different.
Anyways, some of these martial arts are also reactions, such as you can see here, where is it?
Shining Wizard?
Yeah, Shining Wizard, and if you go up, it'll be you can find perfect parrying. They are tagged as such. They also have round cooldown, so yeah.
Perfect parry is quite good. A lot of people get tech level 5 just to get perfect parry because it's really good.
That
But
Yeah.
also it's quite bad on people,
Yeah.
some people, because if you have low speed, it's kind of garbo. But yeah.
oh brother.
Next up is the most, dare I say, like the second most iconic thing from Jujutsu Kaisen, Black
No more
Flashes.
themes, only such.
So the way Black Flashing works is whenever you are rolling to imbue and you have a tech level of 2 or higher, if you get within a certain range, which is listed down here, you Black Flash. And Black Flashing, unlike in the series, which does it increases your damage
2.5.
by the power of 2.5, we multiply it by 2.5, because if we do to the power of 2.5,
Because
you automatically win.
Gege already regrets saying to the power of.
Gege already regrets it, because it's like, oh hey, shouldn't like a flick from Gojo blow up the planet at to the power of 2.5? And it's like, yeah, don't worry about it.
So basically, yes. Anyways, this has to be a natural roll, which means that you ignore any type of bonuses you would add to the roll. So any pluses to the roll don't count, only the actual dice. And additionally, advantage does matter for this. You can get advantage does not affect, like, if you roll at advantage, it still counts for Black Flashing, so long as you don't actually add your bonuses. Below here are the ranges, depending on your tech level. All of these round out to about 5%, give or take, because that's how dice work. So
Yeah, think like
think of it basically as like a crit on a d20, but we're not gonna ask you to roll a d20 because that would just make combat last longer for no reason.
Yeah. Also, the point of Black Flashing isn't, because it'd be kind of weird to be like, I'm gonna roll the d20 because I want to Black Flash on this imbue. That's not how Black Flashing works. It happens no matter your choice. It just happens.
Yeah, you'd roll the you have to roll the d20 every time you imbue something, which would just literally double the amount of rolls you have to make every attack.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
on top of that, there is something unique, which is that you can Black Flash on a specific CE output attack. Technically speaking, you can't do this in canon, but whatever. We're doing it because it's cool. That specifically just applies to Discharge, Blast, and Instant Blast. Those are kind of the only ones that can be affected by this. If you get a Black Flash crit on your CT activation roll, or your CT roll to hit, it does not count as a Black Flash. You cannot Black Flash with your CT, but you can Black Flash by outputting your CE.
To be clearer, you cannot Black Flash on, say, like a projection of curse energy. So if my CT is to make fire, I cannot throw a Black Flash fireball or anything like that. But if your technique consists of you physically making contact with the enemy, such as, like, for example, summoning a weapon and then swinging at them, or I don't know, using something in your body, like
I mean, the best example, yeah, I was gonna say ratio.
That does count. But obviously, be very careful, because if you combine something like ratio with Black Flash, you're gonna kill him.
Yeah, it's okay. Hey, this is a word to DMs.
It's really dangerous balancing.
Yeah, word to DMs. It's okay to add a clause of cannot imbue to an ability to keep them from Black Flashing, because if they Black Flash, they might murder someone with their ability in tandem, you know? So it's okay to put cannot imbue, or just add a big old cannot Black Flash, because, like, oh, activating your CT is, you know, it messes up the flow that you need to be in to activate Black Flash, so that's why you can't do it. Or something like that. It's okay to limit players in that way if the, like, 5% chance ruins your encounter, because they do, like, 200 damage to you. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just kind of what you gotta do, because, like, that's how the verse works. But obviously, like, be careful, like, have contingencies. Keep in mind that you're always at risk of being hit with a Black Flash.
That is something you should always keep in mind as a DM, is that at any moment you could get hit with a Black Flash. So have preparations, but also don't, like, take away from it.
Sometimes.
Yeah, like, it's Black Flashes are cool moments. On top of that, this is sort of up to DM interpretation. Typically speaking, if a Black Flash is dodged or a Black Flash is missed, we count that as still Black Flashing and give the benefits. But I used to say back in the day that if you Black Flash and miss the attack, or someone dodged the attack, you don't get the Black Flash effect off. But I changed that because that's a little boring.
But Houseman, you mentioned benefits from Black Flashing. What are those?
There are benefits.
What could those be?
If you Black Flash not only do you get advantage on all talent rolls next turn, well, no, not even next turn, just until the end of your next turn, which means you automatically get them the advantage. You also gain an additional level of imbue and outputs, which means
you get an additional 1d. Rather, you get an additional 1d4 because the previous levels work differently.
Yeah. So you gain an additional d4 to your imbue, output, coding,
anything that involves imbuing.
Anything that involves imbuing or outputting, you get an additional d4. And I think that it doesn't stack. Does it stack? Do you get an additional? You can. No, the effect can be chained but not stacked.
The effect of 1d4 is like that, and you can't get like 2d4, 3d4 from this effect.
Yeah.
It's just the one, but it does that for 2 turns after black flashing. So even if you lose a chain,
I forget about that.
You have a bonus for a few turns. Additionally, if you black flash and you're under the effects of CE exhaustion, no.
Oh yeah.
Not anymore.
I forgot.
It's because if you black flash with disadvantage, fucking obviously, you immediately end the effects CE exhaustion and you gain advantage in turn. And if you hit 3 black flashes, like in general, you can end the effects of CT burnout if you're getting it from many source, generally domains, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Black flashes are honestly kind of the most straightforward aspect of this system. Just if you hit the range on a natural roll, as in what the dice say, you do a lot of damage, and that's about it. It is not more complex than that. Next up is something that's a little more complex, which is Divergent Fist. Okay, Divergent Fist. So the way Divergent,
it's not that complicated.
I guess it isn't. No. So the way
basically. The Divergent Fist works in the system. It's a skill that you can gain, you can acquire at the Jujutsu skill shop. We will get to that later. Basically, when you throw a punch without imbue, you roll to activate it, and then you deal punch damage without imbuing, and afterwards you automatically get a sneak attack. Scam and Sorcery. We'll get to that too. God. And then you get the second wave of energy as a sneak attack, effectively. And that damage increases the better your imbue level is. It starts as it says here, 1d4 plus 1d6, but if you get a level 3 in imbue, it becomes 2d4 plus 2d6. And kind of it automatically sync attacks on your first use, and then on subsequent effects, you need to roll the actual contest of self/deception to perception and stuff.
Yes, and then we said we were gonna do a bunch of these. We didn't. We just kind of did one. There is Destructive Fist, which Destructive Fist allows
we don't say that anymore, do we?
I don't think we do, but we just.
I mean, technically, Energy Sea Blast and like Instant Blast
that's kind of canon, but that's complicated.
Oh, kinda, yeah.
Yeah, Destructive Fist is a type of CE-based ability similar to Divergent Fist, where instead of Divergent Fist, where you move so quickly your curse energy lags behind, Destructive Fist is purposely standing still to charge up an attack and then hit someone with a full brunt of your newly charged attack. Kind of similar to stacking, but to a nth degree of what you can and can do. The way it works is for every action you spend charging that you were uninterrupted, you gain an extra D10 to your next punch attack. On top of your
not uninterrupted. You just like have to spend the actions, and then eventually you can cash it in.
It does cap at 3d10 though, so you can only spend 3
No,
actions.
it does not. There is no cap. There is no cap. But like,
I thought we capped it.
If you're gonna sit around for 7
you know what? Fair
actions,
point.
If you're gonna sit around for 7 actions, you're probably like throwing for no reason.
Also, it spends also for every stack you have, it costs 3 curse energy. So if you want to sit around for 9 turns, if you want to waste 9 actions and like, what is that? Like 27 curse energy? Go ahead. You can do it. Go ahead. It doesn't matter. On top of that, the Destructive Fist does not require a talent check to pass. You just kind of do it because you are specifically spending your time focusing all the curse energy into your fist. You're gonna succeed that.
It'd be pretty fun if you had to roll the check every turn, though.
No,
It would be really bad, but it'd be funny.
it'd be quite bad. All right, here's the most Curse Energy Discharge. Okay, look,
Pretty simple.
it's pretty simple.
Effectively, it's a little laser beam. You have the damage formula, as you can see, like over here. It's output times 2, as in you double the value of your output, and then you add your attack level. If you have a C trait, it affects a discharge. It costs 4C to use, and it has a range of 20 feet, and then it increases the higher your tech level.
Yes.
You have an upgrade, which is called Curse Energy Blast, which works similarly to Destructive Fist, as in the more turns you charge it, the more damage it deals, with dealing more d6s, and it also can gain like piercing properties effectively because the more you charge, the more people you can hit with them, so long as they're in a straight line.
Discharge
obviously.
is just a simple, like, little energy, basically a spirit gun energy bullet type of deal. Curse Energy Blast is a full-blown, like, Kamehameha laser beam. So it's going to hit more people.
Yes, a more proper laser beam. And then you have instant Curse Energy Blast, which is, take a guess, it is effectively Energy Blast, but you can do it automatically, which means you don't have to spend turns to charge it up. You can just spend the energy and then you get the damage.
Yeah, most people just get... Well, okay, so all these are Jujutsu skills you have to unlock via that way. Oh, Justin's here now. Yeah, most of these are Jujutsu skills you have to spend, Jujutsu skills to unlock and gain. And in order to get the next one in the level, you have to get the previous one. So you have to get...
effectively a little upgrade.
It's an upgrade. So you gotta get Discharge to get Blast, and to get Instant Blast, you have to have Blast. So on and so forth. These are... They're not seen as much anymore, I will say. The meta's kind of stepped away from these. They're still...
Meta, there is no meta, okay? Look, you people just didn't want to use them as much anymore.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, people don't use them as much anymore, but they are very helpful for tech-based people who have a lot of curse energy and they're willing to spend it on a ranged attack.
So it's just nice to have, it's nice to have a range option if you don't have anything from a technique or a weapon.
Yes.
Like a little safety sidearm, I guess.
More like a safety net or wall, one could say, almost like a curtain. So curtains
to work on those
are
segues.
All right, so they're barriers.
They're the barriers from Jujutsu Kaisen. You can make them if you have enough time and you say the little incantation. Curtains can have certain conditions for like who can get in and what can get out, and because of that, they take some time to do. So you cannot just throw them out mid-combat unless you're given an opportunity for whatever reason.
Yes.
And they occupy a large area, so you cannot just make like a 5 feet curtain around yourself or anything like that to block attacks.
Yeah,
that would be like much closer to an actual CT rather than just
Yeah. On top of that, curtains can have restrictions placed upon them, but much like with binding vows, heavenly restrictions, make sure they have equal trade-offs, because a lot of time people will be like, oh yes, I'm going to spend an action to make a curtain that traps this person inside so they can't run away. And it's like, okay, that would take multiple turns to make, and on top of that, there needs to be some type of other trade-off if you want to trap one specific person inside a curtain,
But yeah, well, a lot of that is just sadly on you, dear DM.
It's on the
so,
DM.
Good luck with that.
But the one thing that isn't on the DM...
it's not that difficult.
But the one thing that isn't on the DM, if you want to trap someone inside and attack them, the most iconic part of Jujutsu Kaisen, domain expansions. So, the way domain expansion works is identical to how they work in the main series. You gain... There's some differences. There's a few mechanics.
Well, we'll get to that.
But we'll get to that. The main concept of domain expansion, though, is that after getting X amount of jutsu skills, which we'll talk about those whenever we get to the next slide, you can unlock a domain expansion, and via putting your CT into the domain expansion, you can create a little 20-foot, depending on the curse technique and how many, not curse technique, depending on the domain you are using and upgrades in Dutch. Typically, it's 20 feet in all directions, circle, which traps people inside. And no matter what they do, they cannot escape from that circle, and typically these last around 8 turns. Again, depending on what you're doing. The domain expansion and the general look and all that is up to the player. However, the domain should probably be similar to the CT. You shouldn't have like a fire-based CT and then, oops, I have an ice-based domain expansion. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You're applying your curse technique to this
Also,
domain.
it should be clarified, while there is a 20 feet area, it is purely for the outside and to trap people in. The actual area inside the domain is, generally speaking, much larger, if not like somewhat endless. It's much larger. It doesn't actually have to follow the laws of
Typically,
physics.
what we do is just like, oh yeah, it's the 20-foot circle. However, some people, like, if it doesn't matter, typically people just say, yeah, you're stuck in that 20-foot circle. That's it. However, some people do make it so that they have like a separate map, which you get teleported to when you go inside the domain expansion. But that's like up to how complex and involved you want your domain to be. Because some people just have a domain that's just, I do this domain, and that's it.
It's more so a matter of like relevance. A lot of them, if you're trapped in a domain, generally speaking, you're not actually gonna need to move around too much because you're in the domain.
You're always going to be attacked.
Yeah, and you're gonna want to stay in range from the main sorcerer anyways. So yeah, a lot of people just don't really bother with the making the space more 1-to-1, but the area inside can be its own map and like have mechanics for that stuff.
Well, there is one type of domain expansion that doesn't require that. A whole separate map, because it uses the map as a baseline. Incomplete domain expansions. So, incomplete domain expansions are a type of domain expansion that everyone starts off with. Technically speaking, we don't see like Sukuna use an incomplete domain expansion, but like we can assume they did at some point, or they didn't. But whatever, we're including this as a requirement to get lethal and non-lethal domain expansions as a way to show like progress and stuff. So, in order to get those other ones, you gotta start out with your incomplete. And incomplete domain expansions, unlike normal domain expansions, don't have sure hits, and they don't have a barrier, which means at any point people can just walk outside. However, they do have the ability of half CE cost on any curse technique they are trying to use, and a home field advantage, which a home field advantage is just a buff the user gets from being inside the domain expansion. Much like how Megami could summon like clones of his Shikigami and make clones of himself, and like the water in the ground was made of shadow, so he could go in and out of it, and he could trap people in the shadow of the ground. Similar to that is what a home field advantage is. A type of mini buff that will grant you stronger effects to your CT and such, which we'll go in more detail in that in the lethal domain expansion side. But the main drawback of lethal domain expansion, while they are cheaper and are easier to activate and gain, they don't have a barrier, which means that if you just pop this down in the middle of a field, people can walk outside your barrier, and you just wasted a bunch of CE and are now going into burnout for 2 turns because you wasted your domain expansion. However, because of that, people with an incomplete domain expansion can use the surroundings as their barrier, which basically means their domain expansion can be as big as their surroundings as long as there is a enclosed environment, similar to what Megami did when he went into the gymnasium. And once you open domain expansion, unlike normal domain expansion, due to it being incomplete, you have to roll a talent check every single turn, and if you fail that talent check, your domain expansion closes. Because again, you're going to be like a grade 2 semi-grade 1 trying to perform a domain expansion. You're not going to be very good at it. However, we now go into the big ones, which is lethal domain expansion. So this is one of two types of complete domain expansions, I guess you could call them. And lethal domain expansions cost 25 curse energy and are typically around 20 to 25 in range for their DC. And the range at base for lethal domain expansion is a 20-foot radius. So they gain 3 effects. So lethal domains gain 3 effects. First effect, half the damage. Oh, right. That's the wrong thing. Okay. I read a little ahead. So, they gain 3 things. 1, home field advantage. As I described, home field advantage and some type of buff to the CT or user that they gain while inside the domain. Typically, these things aren't super massive. It's like, oh, gain extra resources whenever you're using your CT. Or like...
The easiest way to explain it would be that it's primarily the same thing it would be similar to the same effect of your incomplete domain, because you presumably you had one of these before.
Yes.
Otherwise, it can have like minor effects to that can affect like everyone in the field, such as, for example, Jogo's domain being so hot that it can already incinerate you without him even using any attacks. Up to you, really, to make like whatever you think is more interesting.
Yes. On top of that, the second effect is that, much like with non-lethal domain expansions, all costs for CT abilities are halved. On top of that, not only are they halved, every CT ability is treated as a sure hit, which means that the AC of that target is treated as 0, and they cannot dodge the attack, however they can block and code it. Which, I mean, technically speaking, they shouldn't be able to block or code it. And
primarily for balancing reasons,
but that's
once again
a little strong. And then the third effect is they gain a domain-based sure hit, which is different from a normal CT attack that gains a sure hit effect. So
think of sure hits as a tag you can apply to attacks, and then you have a domain sure hit, which would be a specific attack that you can only have while inside the domain.
Yes. These attacks are typically incredibly strong and can only be performed once per turn due to their strength. And there are 3 ways you can make these. You can either have the damage and cost of a max tech without any effects. So this is just a maximum technique as a sure hit. So that's like 3d12 plus output plus tech times 2 as a sure hit effect once per turn, which is really strong.
Pretty good.
Because no like exhaustion either. You can just do it again and again without any drawbacks other than cost. You can have the damage of a max output with a strong effect, such as bleed, burn, and unique effect, etc., or with the cost of a max tech, or you can make it cost the price of a max tech, but have a very strong unique effect. Think like apply 5 stacks of bleed at the start of everyone's turn, or status effects can no longer be removed while you're inside my domain expansion. That type of thing. Well, that's more a home field advantage, but whatever. You get the idea. On top of that, whenever you activate a anti-domain technique, all sure hit effects cannot interact with the anti-domain techniques. Specifically, Simple Domain and Hollow Wicker Basket, because those turn off the sure hit effect. So, if someone opens up Simple Domain inside your lethal domain expansion, your CT attacks are no longer sure hits.
They lose a sure hit property, as I mentioned, the tag, and most importantly, your domain attack cannot hit them. Period, because it is the pivotal sure hit of the whole thing.
Yes. On top of that, to make lethal domain expansions even more lethal, because that's kind of the point, once a domain attack hits someone, aka the domain sure hit, whenever it hits someone, the user may deal half of its damage to a second target within the same roll to hit, or if hitting one target, they can re-roll the damage dice and take the highest outcome by paying 3 CE up to 4 times per turn. So, the way this works is either you can hit someone.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
It's self-explanatory.
Yeah, you either deal more damage to another person in the domain, and if there is no one else in your domain, you can choose to re-roll the damage to give yourself the best possible roll. just to make it very lethal.
Yeah. On top of
It's
that,
like some type of lethal domain.
lethal domains last for 8 turns, and the caster has CT burnout for 5 turns at base. That the burnout stays the same, but domain time can be changed. So, a big thing I think people see and think whenever they look at these is the fact that domain expansions are supposed to be ungodly strong. They are supposed to be the thing that you do, and then you win the fight. They are the things we only see like special grades and Megami use, and they're supposed to be really strong. But the thing
It's incredibly hard to balance these, which is why we
kind of nerf them subtly.
Quite yes, domains would be, if you wanted to make them more canon accurate, they would be considerably more powerful. But just to make sure that the fight doesn't like immediately end, so you can actually have some type of combat, we decided to limit them to the way that they are right now.
Yeah, and on top of that, we made it so that any grade 1 with a CT can get a domain expansion, which isn't exactly canon, but the general rule of thumb for this system...
It is pretty canon.
Not really, no.
Every technique is kind of allowed to have a domain.
I don't mean that. I mean grade 1.
Oh yes, yeah. It would be you'd have to be a prodigy to have a domain as a grade 1.
Yes.
And you're probably already on the way, but we lowered the requirements.
We lowered
lowered the requirements a little bit, just so people could.
The general rule of thumb for this system is that we kind of lowered the Jujutsu Kaisen power level a little bit to give these abilities to more people, because it'd be kind of lame to block off domain expansion to only like the best of the best, because that's lame. If you're playing Jujutsu Kaisen, you want to pop your domain expansion and do the cool, awesome domain thing. That's why you're playing the system. So the strength gets nerfed a little bit in exchange for more accessibility. And this can be seen the most in non-lethal domain expansions, because non-lethal domain expansions are the second type of domain expansion, which costs less and is easier to activate. However, the way a non-lethal domain expansion works is that instead of having a lethal sure hit, the sure hit is the blast of knowledge into someone's brain, so they automatically have to participate in the non-lethal domain expansion. And the way that works is, and the way they participate, I should say,
you can think of it as a sort of a mini
is they have to play a game, effectively. Yeah. Which
there are rules imposed, and depending on certain conditions, that generally benefit the caster of the domain, and they can also potentially debuff the opponent. For example, like how Higuruma's domain can steal away your technique, your curse energy, and what have you. Meanwhile, for example, a domain like Hakari's instead has him roll pachinko, which would be the minigame that happens during combat, and once he does hit the jackpot, he gains a massive buff for a long time.
Yeah, unlike
those are the primary ways of making it non-lethal.
Typically, yeah. And unlike lethal domain expansions, with lethal domain expansions have a duration for how long they last and a much longer burnout window. Non-lethal domain expansions do not end until the game is complete. And once you end the domain expansion, the amount of burnout you get is dependent on one could say the lethality or unfairness of the domain expansion. Well, the game. If the game cannot benefit your opponent, the domain gives you 4 turns of burnout because, well, the opponent's not going to win anything, so they kind of just got to sit there, and so because of that, your burnout's going to be longer to make up for that, effectively. And if they do allow for the opponent to gain a buff from the wins, they only get 2 turns of burnout. Again, the whole trade-off aspect that's pretty big in Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, lethal domains can be really complex, and we've seen a lot of potentially interesting encounters die due to non-lethals kind of showing up and taking over the spotlight.
A primary concern of game design is, while we say minigame, you should be careful to not make it like an actual minigame. It is on the occasion, it's fine to make a game that completely stops the flow of combat, but generally speaking, that can very much kill the vibe.
Okay. DMs should
avoid.
be allowed to make mini game domain expansions. I think that's fine to do it in like a campaign
Yeah, it's
setting
fine.
as a
Just be
DM.
careful as to like how long the minigame
Yeah.
takes.
Also,
Because
okay.
being forced to play a different game for no reason, it can be not very engaging.
Also, something people
It can
should.
potentially be very fun. Don't get me wrong.
It can be fun as a one-off, but I think if you spam it too much, it's a little especially as a
it's
player.
a case-by-case thing.
Especially as a player. Players with non-lethal domain expansions, unless they're simple and quick, are kind of hard to deal with as a DM because they eat up a lot of time. But something I would recommend for non-lethal domain expansion is that either if you're gonna say you cannot harm someone or you cannot engage in combat, make the game take a turn or two maximum, and that's it. If you want it to last a long time, I recommend making so a combat can still happen, but there's something happening in the background. Think like Hikari's private love train, you know. Well, no, Idle Death Gamble. That's his CC. Where Hikari and the other person inside the domain are still fighting, but his game's playing in the background. So theoretically, you could beat Hikari before the game goes off. That's not going to happen because it's his domain expansion, but you get the idea. You can still do something instead of sitting there on your hands, not being able to do anything because you got to watch this person, you know, like a play-go fish for 5 turns. That's not really interesting. So if it's going to be a longer form domain expansion, you should allow combat to take place and then maybe be like, oh, as your bonus action, you can interact with the minigame. But if it's going to be shorter, then sure, you can do like a full-blown minigame. Just make sure it's shorter. This slide explains sure hit attacks. We already explained sure hits. If you want to read up on them, go ahead. But, yeah, we already explained them.
Yeah. While do take this video as a guideline, but also please do read the system still anyways, because sometimes look, we've been doing this for a while already. Like, this is our second day of recording. It's already a bit. Sometimes our explanation can still be a bit lacking. Maybe like use them as like context for your learning experience.
An
Not
extra
just, like,
example if you need it.
Yes.
Instead of an actual guideline.
Well, you know, if you have any more questions, click on our channel, link in the description. Our Discord channel, link in the server, link in the description. God damn it.
Okay. Domain clashes. So So unlike in Jujutsu Kaisen, where as soon as someone opens a domain expansion, you can immediately open yours. This one, you have to open yours after someone opens it. This is
because domain is an action. Takes an action to.
It takes an action, and that's a multitude of reasons as to why we don't opening your domain in response to another domain a thing. That's a multitude of balancing reasons we've talked about before, and would take a very long time to explain in this video. But
the easiest way to explain is that you're trying to cash in an action you take in the future, which would be problematic because if for whatever reason you do not get that action, you would not get that action either by being knocked out or being stunned or what have you. It would cause a lot of problems because you simply effectively cheated and started a domain clash you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
On top of that, if you automatically win the domain clash with your reaction domain, a lot of people just wouldn't open their domain expansion, period. Like, they wouldn't open their domain expansion first. They would always want to be the one reacting to the domain expansion, which that just doesn't feel good.
So that'll give you a bit of an advantage.
But the way a domain clash works is whenever 2 people open their domain expansions, or a domain expansion is opened on top of another domain expansion, you automatically have to roll a talent check, and if one person's talent check is higher than 5, they automatically win the domain clash, and whoever had the lowest by 5, domain disappears, and they get the negative effects of losing their domain expansion. However,
if it's less than 5,
you get into a proper clash.
At the start of every turn, you both perform another talent contest, and effectively, you need to get 2 wins in a row. A win is decided by whenever your talent check is higher, it's greater than your opponent's by a factor of 2. So if I roll a 35 and you roll a 38, you win once. And then the next turn, if you win again, my domain closes and yours is open. But if you don't get a difference high enough, or if I win, then well, the clash resets, and if I in the case that I win, I have one of two. And while both of us are clashing, neither of us have our sure hits or our domain attack.
Yes. On top of that, they need to be two consistent wins. And just because you won one doesn't mean you keep the point. You have to win the clash twice in a row.
Yes,
which,
as I said, consecutively.
yes. On top of that, when it comes to non-lethal domain expansion clashing,
Generally speaking, if a non-lethal is open first, you don't have the time to clash to begin with because you're already subject to the rules. So generally speaking, just it should be already kind of implied that a non-lethal domain cannot be clashed against.
I
I
think you could open a non-lethal domain expansion in response to a lethal domain expansion, but I would say the non-lethal effect does not get off until you win the clash, because your sure hit isn't affected until you win the clash, which means the game can't start until the sure hit gets off. But yeah, typically speaking, you can't domain clash with a non-lethal domain expansion if the non-lethal already went off, because you've already been affected by the sure hit and the game has begun, so you can't do anything against it. Then there are expanded domain expansion rules, which we don't really use anymore, and we haven't updated in a while, but there are new rules to them which you can use, which makes domain expansions a lot more complex and kind of difficult to use. But if you want domains to be more powerful and more involved in combat, you do.
Most of the unique effects of these have already been quote unquote assimilated, such as the domain having a unique attack to it. This is primarily for lethal domains, obviously.
Yeah.
But this has some different things, such as a domain acting on its own initiative, which means that it doesn't take up one of your actions to attack with it.
Mm-hmm.
And many other things, such as just having better damage. This is just a custom, an alternate ruling that Justin wanted to implement. Justin, one of our devs, wanted to implement to just see if it could work. And I don't know how he feels about it recently because it kind of hasn't come up for a while.
Yeah.
But sure, it'd be nice to ask him, but he's not here.
So, anti-domain techniques are a type of technique you can use in response to domain expansion. Of course, you can use it not in response. It's kind of up to... I mean, there's no point in using it unless you're using simple domain. But typically, whenever a domain expansion goes up, you can use this as a reaction. You can use one of these as a reaction, which those are Sim Domain, Hollow Wicker Basket, Falling Blossom Motion, and Domain Amplification.
I guess it should be noted that Domain Amplification, technically speaking, isn't something you can use exclusively against domain. In fact, it's not something you would primarily use against domain. But definitionally, it does work, and there's no other easy place to put it on, so that's why it's...
By definition, it is an anti-domain technique, by definition.
Technically, it's a CT thing, primarily, really.
Yeah. However,
that's still pretty good.
Most common one, and the one that has the most to it, is anti-domain technique, Simple Domain. Simple Domain is a technique you can use as reaction in response to the opening of a domain expansion, and once it is opened, it covers a 10-foot radius, which anyone inside that radius is no longer affected by the sure hit effects of the domain expansion. Is no longer affected by the sure hits.
Any attacks inside, as we stated before, any attacks inside this lose their sure hit properties, and the sure hit of the domain attack itself is not capable of hitting at all.
Yeah. The amount of turns to decide how long you are immune to the simple domain is 1d4 plus your TL minus opponent's TL. So if you have a TL of 3 and your opponent has a TL of 5, that means you're rolling 1d4 minus 2. And if you get a 0 or in the negatives, your domain expansion, your simple domain, automatically gets destroyed, effectively. Now, skilled sorcerers can impose rules on their simple domain via binding vows, creating the thing the sumo guy did in the
Sakurajima
arc, which
technically hasn't been. Well, look, your JJK has been out for has been done for like 2 years at this point. Oh God,
yeah,
you should have read it, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes, especially if you're making a campaign about it. On top of that, simple domain. I think we explain this later when we go into new shadow style, but typically simple domain is something at lower levels that you can only do while holding still and being in a single place. I guess he didn't have to do this, but he did choose to do this. Yu, whenever he just sat there and opened simple domain, and also what everyone did against a certain domain attack in Shinjuku. But unless you are semi-grade 1 or above, you cannot move while your simple domain is active, and you must stand still in one spot and have your simple domain circle around you. Once you get semi-grade 1 or above, you can move freely with your simple domain, it following alongside you. But New Shadow Style is a type of form a sorcerer can learn, and it's effectively a type of sword style, gun style, whatever you want to do. It's a style
weapon.
It's
a style of weapon fighting.
It's a weapon style.
A school of
it's a school of weapon martial art, which allows the user to effectively do a EI style quick draw, but making that quick draw into a sure hit. So no matter what, it will automatically hit a target as soon as they enter your domain. Yeah. New Shadow Style is a type of pseudo sure hit, where basically the AC is treated as 0, and the attack automatically activates as soon as someone enters your simple domain. However, people can still dodge the attack, as shown by, Yuji and I think Maki dodging Miwa's attack.
It's a pseudo sure hit, so it ignores AC, but it's still dodgeable, unlike a proper sure hit, which would be, not that.
But on top of being, however, the dodgeable isn't just a free thing. It costs 2 reactions to dodge a New Shadow Style sure hit, and there is a penalty of -1 to the dodge rolls. So it isn't a free dodge roll. It still has some drawbacks if you want to dodge it. So typically speaking, most people just cope the attack. On top of that, interception. New Shadow Style gains a new type of tag, effectively called interceptions, which interceptions are a mechanic that occurs whenever something triggers the New Shadow Style by entering the simple domain, and it comes in 2 ways: projectiles and melee attacks. Whenever a projectile enters New Shadow Style range, the attack is automatically triggered, and its damage is subtracted from the projectile before it hits, so before reactions and stuff can be applied. If your damage you dealt is more than the projectile's damage, the projectile now does 0 damage, and the attack does not get hit off. And you can actually reflect the attack back to the sender, dealing half damage. Don't question how this works with CE based attacks. It just works, so don't worry about it.
I mean, it is the same. Like, you're using curse energy on your weapon, so yeah, it's no reason you can kind of it's like, don't think about it too hard, I guess.
Melee attacks are when it gets a little more complex. If a melee attack is performed against a New Shadow Style attack, the user's roll to hit is made and treated as a contest against the opponents. If the New Shadow Style user rolls, ties, or beats their opponent's roll to hit, then the opponent's attack is successfully intercepted. The opponent is hit by the New Shadow's technique first, and additionally reduces the hit roll by 1/4 of the New Shadow Style's attack final damage, rounded up, as shown in the example. if the attack did 20 damage, the opponent now has a -5 to their hit, which gives you a better chance of dodging or blocking the attack of the if the new shadow style user chooses to. If the opponent wins the contest, then they incur no penalty of any sorts, and the attack of the new shadow style still goes through, but you don't gain any of the benefits of winning the clash, effectively. Effectively, you attack second, which means you don't get any additional benefits, is the way to think
Also,
about it.
you do run the risk of being knocked out before you can do your attacks. Whereas if you attack first, you obviously attack first, so
Yeah.
you know.
Mastering new shadow style. So a way to make a new shadow style feel like an actual playstyle that lets you grow and change alongside the user is that you can eventually master your chosen new master the new shadow style techniques you choose and make them stronger. Which everyone has a certain amount of masteries based on their grade level, which is explained over here. And the way to gain masteries is to basically just spend training slots training your new shadow style, and eventually you will unlock a mastery, which these are found here. Masteries are just little buffs you gain to the already pre-existing technique. Excuse me. Speaking of the techniques, there is all of these techniques. There are quite a few of them. So here are the ones found in canon. Beta Sword Draw is just effectively a simple application of the new shadow style sure hit effect. That's about it. It's the most simple and easy style to use, which everything is kind of based around. Evening Moondraw is a defensive stance that increases your AC. And
I don't think we need to read all of these.
I'm not gonna read all of them. I'm just giving a quick explanation of them.
Yeah.
Moonlight Veil, effectively sneak attack done with your symbol domain. The new ones are Moonlight Draw, which is a parry style attack where you knock someone's weapon out of their hand. Crescent Moon Draw, where you launch someone into the air, which that's important for New Moon Aerial Draw, where if someone's in the air, you can effectively jump up and then combo them in the air to do a second free attack. And then there is one which showed up in Modulo, and we just recently added Malculation, which effectively allows you to trigger Beto Draw continuously for the whole round, effectively. Which, every time you use a new Shadow Style technique, your simple domain goes down. In order to reapply it, you need to spend another action to apply your simple domain imbued with the technique of your choice. With the new Shadow Style technique. And here are the other ones for new Shadow Style. Quarter Moon Draw is a horizontal slash that hits multiple people, and a horizontal. Tsukiyomi Judgment Draw is a judgment draw of sorts, one could say, from DMC.
You get the reference.
A big AoE attack that hits anyone in its way. Then there is Falling Blossom Emotion. So Falling Blossom Emotion is the second potential anti-domain technique you could learn. It's okay. People argue Simple Domain is better, but Falling Blossom Emotion has its own merits, because Falling Blossom Emotion, while it does not turn off the sure hit effect, it instead reacts to the sure hit effect by doing a punch or kick plus output plus TL, which reduces incoming damage. And if that damage is reduced to 0, effects don't get off and you take no damage. On top of that,
it's consistent damage reduction versus being able to completely negate the domain attack and the potential to dodge sure hits, which is useful for some characters.
Yeah. On top of that, it lasts longer than Simple Domain. Simple Domain is 1d4 plus TL minus domain user's TL. Falling Blossom Emotion is 1d6 plus TL minus the domain user's TL. So it lasts a little bit longer since it's just targeting yourself. Then there is Hollow Wicker Basket, which, unlike, it's basically just Simple Domain, but unlike Simple Domain, you don't get any new Shadow Style stuff. And it has no time limit to be kept up. As long as you keep the hand sign going, you can keep Hollow Wicker Basket up, which there are some fringe cases where that's a little better than Simple Domain, though having your hand occupied makes it a little harder
You
to
need to have
be in
like
combat.
4 hands to really make good use of this.
Yes.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You get the right.
Speaking of needing a requirement to be good, domain amplification. In order to get domain amplification, you must have some form of lethal domain or non-lethal domain expansion. This neutralizes the sure hit of any domain expansion, but it's just self-targeting around your body. So that's how it's kind of an anti-domain technique. But okay, domain amplification, for all intents and purposes, is kind of like a combination of simple domain and Flying Blossom emotions, but you can also turn off someone's CT. To be exact, you can also use this technique outside of domain expansion to reduce incoming CT attacks from a non-sure hit. The way that works is that you can basically spend... What is it? I think... Spend 2 CE to reduce incoming damage by a D4, up to 10. So, potentially you can reduce incoming CT damage by 5d10, and if you make contact with a CT user, you automatically turn off their CT, and they can no longer use it.
Do mind that this is any CT attack. This can be used outside of domains, and is primarily, debatably, it's how it's primarily should be used. But of course, it does have the trade back of you. While this is active, you cannot use your own curse technique at all, which also means obviously not your domain. You can drop this at any time, but of course, if you drop it, then you'd have to pay to reapply it, to restart it, which can be very costly.
It's especially costly because it is the cost of your domain expansion. However, when it goes down, you do not gain any of the negative effects of your domain expansion going down, such as CT burnout.
You do not get burnout, yes.
Yes. This is kind of used only like twice in the series, specifically against Gojo twice. So if you're fighting Satoru Gojo, I guess it's useful. Other than that, it's...
No, it's not gonna be useful because it's Satoru Gojo. You're not him.
Yes. Well, there is a way to become him, and that's via Philosophy of a Sorcery. So, Philosophy of a Sorcery is basically a, on the brink of death anime power-up, where if a sorcerer is at 25% or lower max health and some type of dramatic event is happening, they can have an awakening. To fully get that awakening, you must beat a talent check set by the DM. And if you beat that challenge check alongside all the other requirements, you can either A, perform a new ability, and, it doesn't unlock a new ability. Immediately unlock an ability you have been training, or you can immediately gain a Jujutsu skill that's in your Jujutsu skill slots, which we'll explain Jujutsu skill slots and all that whenever we get to it. This is effectively a way to, again, give yourself a power-up whenever you are on the brink of losing. This is something I really like about the system, but it's something people abuse a lot. Because the problem is, a lot of people will just get to like 25% or lower HP and go, okay, cool. Hey, can I unlock this new ability? Can I have the Jujutsu thing? And
yes, while technically speaking you can do that, it is strongly recommended that you use it primarily and exclusively whenever a situation is thematically appropriate. Don't just let your players with philosophy because they're technically in the, it is nice, and it can feel kind of rude to be just denied philosophy because the DM doesn't think it's appropriate, but also sometimes it's just like a fact of life. Kind of gotta live with it,
Sometimes you gotta say no to keep the tension going, and not just be like, if you're ever in a rough space, get to 25% or lower, and then you just win the encounter, Which, even then, philosophy shouldn't win you the encounter no matter what. They can, depending on what philosophy you get, but overall it shouldn't be the I win button if you're getting pressed,
Yes, generally speaking, it's not. It is simply you getting a new skill that might turn the tides of battle.
Yes.
But getting a new skill is pretty good, especially if you get it early. If you get it like effectively for free, like skipping some training slots,
Yeah.
It can be potentially, you can potentially see it as abusing the game.
Yeah, people do typically treat it as a just free new ability, but you really shouldn't see it as that. As that's just kind of simplifying it down to a state in which kind of removes a lot of the gravitas of what philosophy of a sorcery is supposed to be. But, aha, you didn't see this coming. A scam in sorcery. So a scam in sorcery is this system's version of a sneak attack. And what that means is that if you perform a stealth or deception check against a target's perception or insight respectively, and you win that check, you can perform a sneak attack. And what a sneak attack does is it gives you an extra d6 of damage plus your level in speed or cooperation, again, respectively, depending on which one you used, stealth or insight. And you add that to your attack on top of getting advantage to hit on your attack. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's a sneak attack. But the most, I guess, interesting and unique part is the fact that you can use it on deception. That means you can use a sneak attack or scam in sorcery via lying to people. If you have good enough deception, you can just lie to someone and distract them via that lie to gain a sneak attack.
So long as it makes sense, of course.
Yeah, as long as it makes
It
sense.
is to the DM's discretion. Like, for example, using a move that is not ordinarily expected to be part of your technique, or a move that is simply too fast, or simply creating some type of smoke screen for your true attack, or concealing your intentions. There's a lot of, trickery you can do.
Yeah, I
So,
guess.
Get creative.
Yeah, the main example of this, and the people that inspired all this, is the Megami versus Reggie fight, with Reggie's whole, like, oh yeah, us two, we don't have any big attacks, and then he threw a truck at him, and he's like, yeah, I'm lying, by the way, I have a big attack, of course I do. That would count as a scam in sorcery, because you just directly lied to the person, and then they got surprised by your lie.
Well, not only lied to him, but he set it up.
He set it up, yes.
The setup is important. He did not just say, oh, we don't have big attacks, and then threw a big attack. He said, we don't have big attacks, pretended not to have a big attack for a while, and then he threw out a big attack.
Yes.
It's important.
Yeah, scam in sorcery shouldn't just be you walking up to the person going, hey, look over there, and then you get it. It should have some type of flair and gravitas to it.
Some martial arts do come with them included, primarily the ones that are based on the deception / stealth verses for obvious reasons.
Yes.
You can also get them from, say, 1-inch punch, which is a type of surprise attack, effectively.
Yeah. But make sure to use these and get creative with these, because scam and sorcery can be very interesting if you play with it a lot. Oh yeah, and of course you can do the typical hide behind a box, jump out, and then stab someone with.
Yeah, it's like hiding and stuff. Yeah.
What's next up? I actually don't know what's next up next. Oh right, combo attacks. Okay, so this is where things get a little complicated. So in Jujutsu Kaisen, it is pretty common to see people getting jumped and getting, one person being targeted out by like a handful of people, typically two, who are attacking them at the same time or performing some type of unique action by combining their forces together. This, as we like to call it, is a combo attack. So the way a combo attack works is this. You say, I want to perform a combo. You choose a person or people who you want to join in the combo with you. From there, as long as they have actions that can be spent this round, you can perform the combo with them via rolling the combo substat and beating a DC set by the DM, which the DM should keep in mind everyone's general combo / co-op level. So it's not like they're going, all right, 12 for this combo, and the other person rolling the combo has a 2. You should keep that in mind whenever you're setting up these DCs as a DM. However, if both people succeed the combo DC, their attack they are rewarded with a additional D12 to their damage roll. Or you can gain some type of different effect by giving up that D12. So, for instance, a basic combo that people use a lot of times is like, Sorcerer A and Sorcerer B are going to attack Sorcerer C at the same time. You roll combo, succeed, both parties gain an additional D12 damage. However, you could get more unique with it. Let's say Sorcerer A has a wind-based attack and Sorcerer B has a fire-based attack. Well, their combo is going to be Sorcerer A throws out a tornado and then Sorcerer B, sets the tornado on fire, increasing the damage. Well, Sorcerer B can give up their D12 in exchange for giving it over to Sorcerer A to do more damage, or give up their D12 so it applies double on it applies like double on fire or something of the sort, giving a unique effect instead of just getting a raw damage boost. And that should be based around the combo, and in general you should get creative with combos. You shouldn't just say me and this person punch that guy at the same time. That gets kind of boring, and in general DM should reward more creative combos. Now, there
Should
are
be noted that the DC of the if you perform repeated combos, the DC should increase proportionally, because it should be like there are obviously great benefits to comboing that
yes,
there should be incentive to not combo all the time.
I was-
Primarily because if you fail the combo, you cannot attack.
Yes, I was about to get to that, which there are some restrictions to combos. So first off, you can only have as many people participate in the combo as co-op level you have. So if you want 3 people to participate in a combo attack, everyone must have a 3 in co-op. It doesn't matter if one person has a 2 and everyone else has 3. If that person with a 2 cannot participate in the 3-person combo because they have a 2, which means they can't perform with other people, and so on and so forth. So that's one restriction. Another restriction is that if the person fails the combo... Okay, so again, let's go back to the original situation. Let's say Sorcerer A, Sorcerer B. They're going to attack Sorcerer C at the same time. Sorcerer A succeeds his combo check. Sorcerer B does not. Sorcerer A can still attack. However, because there is no combo happening, that means that Sorcerer A does not get any benefits from the combo. They can still attack. Sorcerer B, since they failed the combo, that means they cannot attack, period. So effectively, as long as you succeed the combo check, you can still attack, you just lose the benefits of combo. Now, there are some situations in which both parties cannot attack. For instance, Sorcerer A is going to use Sorcerer B as a type of jumping pad to reach Sorcerer C, who's on a different platform. If Sorcerer, A or B were to fail that combo, since that combo is so entwined with each other succeeding, if one person fails, both would fail. But that depends on the combo you're trying to do, which, again, combos that require multiple people to succeed should be given a higher reward and should be given better effects. That's based on the combo and all that stuff you want to do. On top of that, every time you do a repeat combo, it gains an additional +2 to the DC. So if you do the same combo again and again, like same turn, even like if you do a combo within the next turn of each other, it gets that +2 effect. However, there are some benefits to combo beyond the additional D12 or whatever extra effect you want to be. And HH, would you like to describe combo time? I do not think he's here, so I'm going to describe combo time then. So, combo time. Combo time is a in-sync effect you can gain via comboing with someone. The way to enter combo time is to be within, at minimum, be within 3, the dice range of the dices you roll have to be within 3. So if someone rolls a 12 and the other person rolls a 14, they would be within 3, which means they activate combo time. And combo time gives the sorcerers effects based on how close their dice are to each other. So again, if I go back to that 12 and 14, because they're within a dice range of 2, they would gain combo time level 2, and they would gain this effect. The closer and closer you get, the stronger and stronger these effects are. However, just because you get a combo time of 3, that does not mean you get the effects of 1 and 2. You just get the effects of 3, which I mean these effects are like effectively are just stacking on each other, so they're good. Yeah. So missions as a sorcerer. This the mission system is how you get Jujutsu skills. Basically, every time you get sent out on a mission of sort, which is, an encounter created by the DM, you preset in your Jujutsu skill slot a Jujutsu skill in which you will gain after completing the mission. That's about it, typically. Depending on what mission you go on, depends on what skill you can gain. So, for instance, if you put in a grade 3 Jutsu skill, if you go on a grade 3 or higher mission, you gain the Jutsu skill. Some require multiple missions to go on to unlock, which that just means that after going on one mission, you need to go on a second one to unlock it, and it just sits there, taking up space until you go on a second one to fully unlock it.
Should be noted that obviously speaking, while you may say that a mission is grade 1, is like, for example, grade 3, within the narrative, the encounter might end up being, of course, much more difficult for whatever reason, because missions do go wrong, obviously. In those cases, it's up to you whether or not you want to just say that your players gain a certain level of Jujutsu skill. Like, if you actually want to keep it as a grade 3 Jujutsu skill, or if you want to be nice and give them, like, say, a grade 1 skill because, it ended up being a grade 1 situation. It depends a lot on, like, especially how you want to progress the story and what have you. So, but that is an option, so do keep it in mind always, of course.
Yeah, and unlike training slots and stuff like that, where we recommend you not go too crazy with them, do as many missions as you want. It really doesn't matter.
It is primarily the way, because missions are the way the plot moves forward anyhow.
Is how the plot moves forward, and also, unlike training slots where if you get too many training slots, characters become too strong. There are so many Jujutsu skills here, you are not going to run out of Jujutsu skills to pick.
Generally speaking, most of the time, you're not gonna have a lot of problems if they get too many Jujutsu skills, and the ones that would be problems are very conveniently, on the higher level. So, for example, simply don't give them too many grade 1 skills, for example.
Yeah. On top of that, typically they gain a baseline of like 5,000 yen per mission and get plus 1,500 yen per starting grade, starting at grade 4. So if you go on a grade 3 missions, they should be making like 10,000 yen each. Again, up to the DM and how much money you want to give people. Also, technically speaking, they should be making more than 10,000 yen a mission, but in order to keep everything in balanced, you only get 10,000 yen. Because if not, the whole shopping system is going to explode. This is kind of how
we set up our own internal economy. If you don't want to use it, you can make your own, but like, you can make your own.
Yeah, and that's about it. Here's all the Jutsu skills and their little, the places in which you can find them and the general idea of what you're looking for. You can look here in the legend, and from there, here they all are. Some have some requirements, like, for instance, Seal's Resistance. In order to get Seal's Resistance, you must not have Reverse Curse Technique, and vice versa with RCT. Some stuff requires you to be grade 1
requirements, such as must be a semi-grade 1, which in those cases you would obviously be limited that way.
Yeah, and just because something says special grade mission does not mean you have to be a special grade to unlock it. It just means you have to go on a special grade class mission in order to unlock that ability.
Should be noted that skills are how you gain things such as max outputs, max techniques, any type of domain ability, anti-domain abilities, as well as new shadow style attacks. So keep all of that in mind, I guess.
On top of that, whenever you do any type of time skip of sorts, alongside giving training slots and stuff, we recommend you give out Jujutsu skills, because like these people will go on missions all the time, even if you don't see them going on missions, so give them a handful of Jujutsu skills as a reward for the time skip.
Yeah, realistically speaking, you're not gonna, even within the fiction of the story, not every mission might be important. If you want to skip, for example, skip ahead to just give them a couple of skills, that's totally not. Especially because it would be boring if you had to see your players go on a grade 3 mission that they easily stomp. Because obviously, use sound judgment to determine this stuff.
Next up is another important thing in the main leveling up system besides stats, which is XP. So every time you level up a stat another level, you gain XP equal to the number of the stat you leveled up into. So if you go from a 2 to so let's say you go from a 2 in attack to a 3 in attack, if you do that, you are automatically given 3 XP. This was taken just directly from 1C, but we put our own spin on it. So once you gain XP, you can head over to the XP shop and use your XP to buy things. If you have 3 XP, you can take a single thing from the 3 XP shop, or you can split it up and take 3 1 XP skills.
You can also save up XP.
You can
to use at a later point in time, but even if you do this, you cannot get an XP skill of a number higher than your highest stat. So, for example, if I only have up to a 4 in my stats, I cannot get a level 5 XP skill. This rule technically doesn't apply to pre-made characters because obviously. So and also they have like other disadvantages, so it's generally speaking more okay for them, but like do be careful with that, of course.
Yeah, typically whenever I do, I try not to give him a 5 XP if they don't have a 5 in a stat, but that's up to the character and all that and what you want to do.
Yeah, generally speaking, it's probably better to err on this side, but yeah, you never know.
You can do whatever you want.
It's a free country.
Shopping. What do you want me to say? You get money, you buy the thing, you have the thing. There's food, there is things where if you add them to your living space, you gain benefits to your substats, which are just typically like bonuses and stuff. There are also some unique effects, like games. You can use those for training and stuff to gain aptitudes. There's like sleeping bag, which gives you different benefits if you do a short rest while sleeping in it. It's shopping. You've played a video game before. You know how shopping works.
You've also gone places in real life, I would
too.
assume.
Yes.
You can exchange money for goods and services.
On slide 201, there is a link to our campaigns curse tool shop, so you can find a bunch of pre-made curse tools in this link right here. If you want to, not have to spend hundreds of hours making curse tools.
Not hundreds of hours in exaggeration, but yeah. If you want a couple of pre-made ones, or if you want like a decent reference point to how to make alright curse tools.
Yes.
Because those are pretty decent.
Now there is inventory and housing. So everyone at a baseline can hold up to 5 items in your inventory. Typically speaking, there is no stacking limit, but use common sense with this. It makes sense to stack like 5 small bandages. It doesn't make a lot of sense to stack like 4 fishing rods in your inventory, So like, use common sense when you allow stacking. On top of that, you can have 2 accessories, which do not count for clothes. They're little accessories you can equip to your body that give you benefits and such. On top of that, clothes do not count towards the items in your inventory as long as you are wearing them. If you are wearing them, they do not count for your inventory. However, eventually you are going to run out of space in your inventory, and that's when you're going to need a place to put your stuff down and also put your little decorations and stuff. A normal housing, dorm, or apartment or hotel typically allows you to keep up to 5 extra items, 10 small housing decoration items, and 5 large housing decoration items. By 5 extra items, I mean like med kits, curse tools, so on and so forth. And then the 10 small housing decoration items are the decorations and stuff that give you benefits from keeping them in your home. and so on and so forth. Typically speaking, if you do not have a good house or a non-consistent place to stay, you cannot do a rest higher. You just can't do a full rest. You can only do a short rest, effectively. Is the highest you can do unless you get a proper housing. Which, speaking of rest and recovery. So, much like D&D 5e, in order to regain HP and CE, you gotta rest. And some daily abilities and some weekly abilities come back after spending X amount of time, doing things and letting the time frame move forward. Typically speaking, you must sleep throughout you must not sleep, but at least rest throughout the entire time. So if you get interrupted, that rest gets canceled. There are 3 types of rest: quick rest, which are short rest that are less than an hour, and the sorcerer regains 1/4 of their HP and CE. You can only take 1 quick rest before they take a full rest. Short rest, it is anything between an hour and 4 hours. The sorcerer regains half of their HP and CE. This type of request requires a certain level of comfort to be successful, and depending on the situation, a roll called by the DM may be required. Then there is full rest. These are any rest that lasts for 8 hours or more. The sorcerer regains all their HP, CE, and daily abilities. This type of rest is available only by sleeping, along with the previous requirements to be successful of the short rest. And depending on the situation, a roll called by the DM may be required. On top of that, as we say here, rest can be interrupted whenever the DM feels like it, to include some type of drama or anything of the sorts. And if you don't rest, you get exhaustion. Exhaustion is different from C exhaustion or C depletion. Exhaustion is what happens whenever you do not get enough sleep. Specifically, I think it's if you do not take a full rest in a day, you get 1 level of exhaustion, which an exhaustion level is a -1 penalty to any and all rolls, no matter what. In order to get rid of a exhaustion, you must take a full rest. Exhaustions also affect training differently, where anytime you try to train with an exhaustion, you have a -2 instead of a -1. Next is working. Working is a small aspect of the system that isn't really talked about, but it's there. If you want to spend free time making some extra money, you can go find a job, and via rolling certain roles set up by the DM, if you pass them, you get money. That's about it. Cooking. So, there are a bunch of food items in the system, and if you eat a food item, you gain some type of benefit. To be exact, you can have the benefits of 1 drink, 1 snack, and 1 meal at a time. Obviously, you can eat more food for flavor's sake, but typically speaking, you only gain the benefits of 1 drink, snack, and meal at a time. And whenever you want to eat a new thing or you want to gain a new effect, you got to switch those effects out. They don't stack. On top of that, you can cook. Depending on how you can cook, which allows you to fuse items together and potentially get new effects from your food. And the better the effects are based on the better you roll to create food. Pretty self-explanatory. Fishing slash any type of gathering if you want to use. This is sort of a meme slide that kind of exists now. Basically, at any point in time, you can go out and scavenge scavenge the world, and you can either find, material for your cursed corpses. You can also go find like food or something via, fishing. You might also find a cursed spirit out there, which you can tame. Read the slide at your own digression. It's not really that important. All right, NPCs. So NPCs is something that I'm going to talk about in tandem with character creation, because they are incredibly similar. Well, not incredibly similar. In order to make an NPC, you effectively make a character, but you add your own little stuff to it. For instance, a DM can give NPCs more HP, more jutsu skills, more stronger attacks, stronger damage reduction to make the fight interesting. Effectively, you are making a character, but you're allowed to cheat because you're the DM, and cheating is more okay if it makes the fight interesting. It's better to have a interesting fight where the DM cheated than a boring fight where the DM didn't do a thing because, like, oh, I had to stick to the guidelines. You don't got to stick to the guidelines when you make characters. You can do whatever you want, including, sometimes maybe, they might just randomly have an extra one or two whoops that you just, you forgot you gave them the whoops, but they have the whoops now, and now they succeeded their CT activation. Crazy how that happens, right? Or maybe they'll just forget they had like an extra stack of Imbue. They just like forgot they had that, or like actually the maximum output cost like 5 less CE. Actually, I just silly me, it slipped my mind. You're allowed to cheat as the DM if it makes the fight more interesting. Alright, so I talked about how to create NPCs and such, and I basically said, hey, make a character, but how do you make a character? Well, here's how you make a character.
That is a fucked up question. That's a loaded question.
First off, you go choose a grade level to start at, and then you add all the benefits you get from that grade level, such as stats, XP, Jujutsu heal, so on and so forth. That's pretty self-explanatory. From there, you calculate HP, CE, AC, and then you make the character. So that's
before we get to that, it should be noted that whenever you look at the recommended grade stats in that table we have up above earlier in the presentation, those are the max stats. Those are like quote unquote the quote unquote cap. That is like the strongest a group one should be,
yes,
give or take. So you can and should in fact make weaker grade ones to serve and like people within the given grade levels to fill out the roster of your campaign.
Yes. So to make a character, that is a very complex question. Typically speaking, you, at least for, I guess because saying how do you make a character is kind of difficult, so I guess I'll say how I make a character. Typically, how I make a character is I will either come up with a CT or a personality first, and I'll go from there. Either I'll make a CT and then make the person based around the CT and all that, or I'll make a personality and then come up with a CT later. Or I might not come up with a CT entirely, depending on how the personality works. But overall, typically what I do is I try to find other things for inspiration and such on what to base the character on whenever I make them.
I have similar experiences personally. Like, yeah, I just try and find an interesting idea for either either technique for like narrative purposes, or like narrative slash visual quote unquote purposes, or just interesting mechanic I think could make for a fun fight. I think that like those are your best impulses, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making a character as a player, however, I do feel like you should work with something that you think has a lot of potential, either has a lot of potential to like grow and change, or something that you think you will never get like old of. So, for example, like if you really like tanking damage, you can do a pretty straightforward thing with that. But if you want to have like a bit more variety in your gameplay, then a curse technique that has like a lot of different abilities to it, or say something that is very clear progression, such as something adjacent to 10 shadows as you tame new Shikigami and whatever. Know that. What do you, Justin?
I personally definitely agree with all you said here. My character creation comes from just bursts of inspiration, not anything consistent. But what I will say consistently is that you should always give your character some sort of gimmick, something to make them unique, stand out. And the second thing you should do It's always consider both the strengths and weaknesses of your character, and do this holistically, not just with the individual mechanic, but as a character as a whole. Everything about them, their HP, CE, all of that. Since this is a system where you can create your own character, it is up to you and your DM, but very much you, to balance them as well.
Yeah, in case,
And
especially in
the
case if
goal,
you're the DM.
mhm. The goal is never to make the strongest character possible, because once you have full rate, that becomes incredibly easy and kind of defeats the purpose. The goal is to make the most balanced and fun character for you possible.
Yeah, on top of that, character creation is something the DM and player are probably going to have to talk about a lot and actually, like, discuss on a deeper level. Ignore Justin playing Marvel Rivals in the background.
I'm so sorry, Elden.
You're fine. But yeah, it is something that the DM and player are going to have to talk about and discuss a lot with how you want to balance it, how do you want the character to work, so on and so forth. It's a little hard to, like, exactly say. All right, I'm just gonna. It's a little hard to say exactly, like, how to make a character progress in a TTRPG game that kind of is determined by the DM and the player as a whole.
Yeah. I will say I don't think there's anything wrong with having a general idea of everything you want your character to do at their endpoint. For example, me personally, whenever I'm in a campaign, I do generally already have like about all the ideas I want for the character thought up right at the start. And so I just write them down on the sheet, and then I discuss with my DM later on when I can achieve one thing or another, for example. Likewise, you always should be open to like new abilities. You know, if your DMs have any suggestions for a new skill, you should hear them out. Same with your player, same with your other players. You know, always be open to new ideas because those are usually pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm typically the opposite, where I have a basic idea for the character, and then I sort of let the story progress, and I grow the character from there. But there's one thing in which you do not need to, discuss with your player about, and that is the curses. Curse spirits are going to be your main, thing that people fight in Jujutsu Kaisen. Obviously, that's the main point, is you're going to be fighting curses. So because of that, curses have their own separate way of creation compared to NPCs and player characters. You can even see that in their...
What is a curse? Philosophically, what if the real curses was the friends we made along the way?
You could make that as a curse. Yes, you could, theoretically.
What if the themes...
Yes, but you can see they are different.
Also, I don't think we need to explain what a cursed spirit is, right?
I don't think we need to. Watch
I
Jujutsu
know,
Kaisen.
I'm joking. I'm doing shit.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I'm just
Yes.
I'm just pointing out for the audience.
Yes.
You see it.
But on top of that,
know what a curse is. Think of watching JJK by JJ Akutami.
Or reading. You could read.
Yes, but on top of that, they
if
have
you
their
read it.
own separate slide for their own Shikigami. This curse spirits have their own separate character sheet, which you will use because curses don't need aptitudes and stuff. So this simplifies it a lot and also adds a bunch of stuff that is curse only. You would also use this for Shikigami, since you create Shikigami similar to how you create curses. But curses have their own unique biology, which means we recommend you give curses stuff that isn't directly related to like a CT. Like give them claws, fangs, unique appendages, unique effects based on their biology. Because these things are not human beings. They're monsters created from the emotions of human beings. They're allowed to be a little freaky. One advantage curses get is that they can heal via using curse energy to heal their body. Depending on the grade level, depends on how much healing they get. Grade 5s, aka flyheads, can't heal because they're that weak. Anything above grade 5, though, can heal, and their healing gets better and better the stronger they are. However, the price stays the same of 5 CE in order to heal themselves, which this does cost an action. Think of this like RCT, but every curse gets it, effectively. On top of that, curses can get smarter and smarter. Depending on the intelligence level of the curse, depends on a few handful of things. For instance, at level 1 intelligence, they're animalistic, which just means they have access to scam and sorcery and their biological abilities. Intelligence level 2, they gain the ability to speak, a handful of words and such. They have access to simple domains, output coding, and access to their CT and all abilities that would initiate if they even have a CT to begin with. Some might not. Intelligence 3 is average intelligence, where they get semi-complex speech, imbuing/imbue stacking. They gain access to all CE and CT related abilities, which includes extension techniques, maximum outputs, max text. 4 is above average human intelligence, and this is when they gain access to martial arts. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't give curses like effectively martial art damage for some of their damages, but they can actually gain access to martial arts once they reach intelligence 4. Intelligence 5 is when they gain access to domain expansions, and they gain Jujutsu skills equal to a max out grade 1 sorcerer. Obviously depending on the curse's grade level. Like if a grade 2 curse has 5 intelligence, they only gain a max out grade 2. It's just, typically speaking, curses shouldn't have a 5 intelligence until they're like grade 1, because 5 intelligence is like the disaster curse's level of intelligence, while something like grade 3 is like the grasshopper curse. On top of that, curses have a form of awakening similar to a philosophy of sorcery, where if a sorcerer is at 25% or lower, if they're at 25% or lower and have intelligence level of 4 or higher, they gain the ability to unlock a new CT, a new ability, a new attack, so on and so forth. It's philosophy of sorcery, but in the form of curses, and you should typically not give this to every curse. You should save this for some type of big character moment involving a curse. Save them for like your Mahitos instead of your random grade 3s. On top of that, to make curses even stronger and to make certain curses actually a challenge, this is where curse actions come in. If you know D&D, they're effectively legendary actions. Curse actions are actions you can give to boss curses, as I like to call them. Curses that, are going to be more 1v 3ing, 4ing, 5ing your party. The big encounter at the end of the mission that you run into. These curses gain curse actions, and depending on their grade level, they gain X amount of curse actions, but they can use every single turn. These curse actions allow them to have unique and different effects, such as being able to attack with their least damaging attack, heal with their curse actions, or do something even more. Curse actions do not take up actions. They are simply just other actions they have access to during combat. Then there are the stats for them. These are much like with actual character creation, you don't need to follow these word for word, but they give you a very good example of the type of HP, AC, CE, and stats every grade level of curse should have. And on top of that, it tells you how many curse skills they can have and the amount of points you can put into curse skills. What are curse skills? For all intents and purposes, they are effectively Jujutsu skills. It is the things that make curses slightly stronger and give them some uniqueness to their ability. Because at a certain point, you can only do, like, the curse has strong claws that slice you before it gets really boring. So because of that, curse skills are a way to add some flavor and variety to these curses to give them more unique and give them a bit of a buff. Because here's the thing. Unlike in Jujutsu Kaisen canon, where a grade... a sorcerer's grade level should be allowed to easily take out a curse at their level. So, you know, a grade 2 sorcerer should easily be able to take out a grade 2 sorcerer. But a grade 2 sorcerer should easily be able to take out a grade 2 curse with no issue. That's how it works in canon. We don't work it that way in the system. In the system, to make curses a little more dangerous and to make it so DMs don't have to constantly throw grade 1, grade 2s at their party, the power level has kind of been evened out a little bit. So if a grade 2 sorcerer was to fight a grade 2 curse, it's less that the sorcerer will win like without a problem. They will more than likely win, but they're going to have to try a little bit harder, you know. Sorcerers of the level of the curse should still be able to take them out without any issue. Well, they should be able to take them out and win the fight, but there's going to be some issue there to give some pushback and make the combat interesting. So, effectively, due to us depowering sorcerers to give you access to, like, domain expansions, RCT, and stuff like that, we also buff the curse a little bit to make it an actual challenge.
Some advice when it comes to running curses and encounters. Generally, a party will be able to pretty easily, a party of 3 or more should be able to pretty easily handle a curse of a single grade level higher. Well, not easily, like a medium difficulty, the maximum curse of a grade level higher. This obviously depends on the certain circumstances of an encounter, but that's a good metric. Should I throw a grade 2 at my party of grade 3s? Well, yes, you probably can. They'll probably survive with medium difficulty, assuming assuming their max power and no other outside influence. And for running curses, I really recommend to not care that much about curses CE amount and CE amount. If the combat is already very complex and there's already a lot of things going on, you can just eyeball it. Make them low CE when it feels appropriate, and track the really big moves. But every time one of the 15 curses coats, it doesn't matter.
In terms of eyeballing it as well, it is, I generally find, very helpful to not focus too much on the HP. Like, if the party deals a lot of damage at once, it's fine if they kill one of the little runts, even if it wouldn't actually kill them otherwise. Sometimes you have
That's
to
a
concede a little
go
with
on.
that. Yes, that's average. I know that's average advice for like any D&D game, but like I
Mhm.
don't know how, I'm not gonna assume that our players know how to run a D&D game.
Yeah. I was gonna say that is really good advice. Just in
Yeah.
general, not every combat has to be run to its natural conclusion. Sometimes it is just better to call it a day when it's clear that the party will win and there's no real point on letting the combat last another 30 minutes to take out the 2 curses that unmatched will match do a little bit more damage to the party's HP. If you want every little bit and inch to count, absolutely, but if not, just let it go, man.
Also, be careful with how many curses you put on the map. Don't put like 5. Don't put like 7 grade 4s on the map for no reason.
Effectively speaking, you do not want to put more than like 3 to 4 curses that there are sorcerers. So if you have 3 sorcerers on the field, don't put more than 6 or 7 curses on the battlefield.
Yeah,
It's
action
just
economy at that point levels is a big factor, even if they are much weaker.
Not even that, it just
And
takes
also,
longer. It just takes
fighting
so
much
long to get
weaker
through that
curses
many.
is generally just not that interesting because there is
Yeah,
very little
typically,
difficulty.
if you are going to do a bunch of weaker curses, group them up and make them like one congealed thing. It's like, oh, these 10 grade 3 curses form together and are working together as a pack. They're now treated as like a grade 1 threat. Do something like
Yeah.
that, you know.
we do have actual
We do have
mechanics for that.
a thing for that, yes. But overall, for an encounter, if you want a... basically, for an encounter, if you want to give a challenge, throw a curse that is a grade level higher than the players. If you want, like, minions or something like that, throw curses that are at the player's level. And if you want a really difficult challenge, throw something that's, like, 2 to 3 higher than the sorcerer's grade level. And again, all these are based around the fact that you have 3 people in your party. The amount gets a little funky whenever you get, like, 4 to 5 and higher in there. But yeah, these are the curse skills, which you can spend points on the buy to add more uniqueness to them.
And don't be afraid to just add random mechanics, even if it doesn't fit in any of these specific sections. As long as it would create a more interesting fight.
Yeah.
If you're, for example, if you had a really awesome curse idea, but there's no way to get over the fact that they have 2 reactions, just give them more reactions. No one cares.
Yeah. Again, as I said in the NPC Creation section, DMs are allowed to cheat as long as it makes the fight more interesting.
Yeah, you don't even have to tell your players you're cheating. You can just do it discreetly.
You can.
In fact, don't tell your players you're cheating ever. Like, even if you are, because it breaks immersion and it makes it feel less earned. Like, even if you cheat in their favor, like, don't ever say that.
But do you want to know how you enhance immersion? Curse wounds. So curse wounds are a unique type of curse, which effectively can act like an interesting boss encounter. So the way it works is that a curse wound is a prelude stage to a much stronger curse. Typically speaking, they are like non-combatants that just kind of sit around for a little bit before they awaken to a stronger curse. Think of the like
preloaders.
Preloaders, basically. It's like the curse womb that we saw in the curse womb arc before it turned into the finger bearer or dagger.
Curse womb you saw in the curse womb arc.
Oh yeah, I guess it was the detention center arc, not the curse room arc.
I know, but saying the curse room in the curse room arc, you know, the curse room.
I mean, yeah, basically. But yeah, these are things that are little preludes, and typically the way they work is that there are 3 ways to do curse wounds. There is the timer version, where there is a set amount of time before the curse womb awakens to its true original form. There is the story beat form, where after dropping to X amount of HP, typically 20%, and going through some type of immense trauma, they will awaken to their true form. And that true form usually increases the curse's grade level by 2 or so. So a, grade 3 curse would turn into a grade 1, a grade 2 curse would turn into like a special grade. Well, actually no. It's not 2. It jumps up like 3
matter.
levels.
It
doesn't
make
matter.
the encounter. Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Make the encounter you want to
but
make,
yeah, typically speaking, they go from a much weaker curse and evolve into something much stronger. However, there are specific ones that are much, much stronger in their curse wound forms, and these are Vengeful Curse Spirit wounds. These things are usually incredibly strong to begin with before they turn into something that is a in-game boss level threat due to how strong Vengeful Curse Spirits are. To be exact, Vengeful Curse Spirits are what happens whenever a sorcerer dies, and either they die without curse energy or they die with some type of big vendetta. They come back as a curse with their CT still intact, and typically their brain is all kind of messed up to the point of being hard dead set on one thing. On top of that, due to being a curse, they not only gain a unique curse biology, gaining, curse regeneration, their HP and CE are multiplied by 2, and their AC by 1.5 compared to their original human self, and all their stats, excluding intelligence and cooperation, are raised by 2 points, and they get all the benefits of becoming a curse. But yeah, these things are really strong, and you should be careful when you use these, because yeah, you are effectively multiplying the stats of like a grade 2, grade 1, and then throwing it at your party. they're gonna be pretty strong and should be saved for like in-game type of boss encounters.
Even a grade 3 sorcerer would already like immediately become a grade 1 in terms
Alongside
of relative stats.
gaining like curse
Yes.
energy, curse spots too.
Yes, they would gain. If you're gonna make a curse, vengeful spirit, be sure to give them curse skills, and they can keep their jujutsu skills.
Yeah, I
why
was gonna
not?
say they would have jujutsu skills plus
of
curse
course.
skills plus curse actions, so they would be ungodly strong. So be careful with these. Another thing you have to be careful with, not to have an aneurysm with, is curse spirit taming / non-CT Shikigami creation.
My favorite mechanic.
We're not gonna discuss the canon implications of this because it is a very big headache.
The canon is messy when it comes to creating a non-CT Shikigami, such also just being allowed to tame a
Because
curse.
it's not clarified at all.
It's not clarified at all. It is
Kinda
a
had to
thing mentioned
eyeball
like
a lot of
twice.
it. So and it'll be kind of a waste of time to justify all of our reasoning. So we're just gonna please just assume that this is how it works, okay?
Yeah.
Personally, I'm still not fully convinced it's even a canon thing. I think Gege is lying to us.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I wouldn't put it past him. That motherfucker.
But yeah, the basic idea is that once a curse is, physically or mentally weak enough, you are able to perform a ritual which allows you to tame and take control of that curse. Whenever you do that, the curse raises or lowers or matches your grade level, either gaining strength or losing strength depending on the level in which you tame the curse. And they basically just become a Shikigami. Sometimes you can have the curse interact with your CT if you have it long enough. Oh, but that's it's weird. So read this slide on your own. 9 out of 10 people aren't gonna do this thing, but it's here, so you can use it.
It is.
If you do this thing, I do think less of you.
Yeah, well, we made this thing due to a player in our campaign going, I want to tame that curse. And I went, sure, you can tame the curse, and now it exists.
It is also vaguely canon.
It's vaguely canon.
It is canon in a nondescript way.
Yes.
Which is the worst possible option.
Yeah. But the worst possible option that could happen is not taming a curse. It is dying. Whenever you reach 0 AC... not AC. Whenever you reach 0 HP, you fall unconscious and must roll death saves at the start of your turn. A death save is you choosing your highest substat, or whatever substat you want, and then rolling to beat a DC equal to your stats total added up. If you succeed 3 times, you stabilize and are alive. You don't die. If you fail 3 times, if you failed 3 times or take double your max HP, you die, and that's it. There's no more of you. If you somehow get a crit on the death save, you come back up with 1 HP, anime style, mata, I'm not done yet, that type of thing. It's not happening.
I'm not done yet.
I've not seen it happen yet either. To be fair, death is not... Due to the amount of high survivability in this system, killing players or even getting them to 0 HP is really hard to do unless you're trying to do it. It's
do mind that this is a world unlike some other systems. This is a world where death is much more permanent. It's obviously absurdly more permanent.
Yeah,
so...
it's not like in D&D where you can go buy a revivify spell and then the person comes back to life. If they die in JJK, they're usually dead forever.
If you die in the video game, you die in real life.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of hard to put people down in a verse in which people can just learn RCT. So it's a little hard to do that. And healing CTs aren't that uncommon, But with that, here's the character sheets where you can find all the character sheets we made. And that's it. That is the final system overview for Wield the Curse Jujutsu Kaisen. We're probably not gonna do. We're still gonna do updates and stuff, of course. You know, like change small things and tweak them a bit, but
It shouldn't be anything too
nothing
major.
major.
So this
Nothing
video will
that
probably
requires.
stay
Yeah,
relevant.
nothing that requires like a new video to be made.
And if we make a new mechanic that requires a new video, we are just
We're just making that video.
I don't know, man.
We're
I
just
don't
making that
know.
video.
That's
But
scary.
also don't plan on making new requirements because, again, in September, in 3 months, I'm pretty sure we've been working on this system for 3 years at this point.
Time flies.
It really does.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It was a lot of fun to make the system, but
It was, yeah. I wouldn't have made it for 3 years if it wasn't.
yeah, I am.
God willing.
I wouldn't have done all this shit.
Yeah. But we're obviously going to make more systems and release more systems as we go, but this is kind of a good bookmark to the first system of this channel. However, there's still a continuation elsewhere. If you go into our Discord server and go into fan add-ons, you can find the JJK Modulo add-on, which is a separate add-on, kind of 2E-ish-esque.
It is an alternate rule set that Justin made with a bunch of mechanics that he really wanted to add that we were like
Wow.
completely sure on, and also he just wanted to have like more artistic liberties to do whatever he damn pleased.
It is very much a system I made out of the fun of it because I wanted to make something like that. I want all my ideas unfiltered, the unfiltered Just Know Justin experience.
Yeah, but
It's like this system but with hookers and blackjack.
Something like that.
yeah, but this is where we are going to end the analysis. If you have any questions or concerns, go check out the Discord server. Please read the system thoroughly before you ask us these questions or talk to your DM.
It's fine if you didn't read it. I won't be mad at you. House will,
I will.
but I won't. I'll forgive you.
I won't. But yeah, season 3 of I guess I'm not gonna say a hard date yet. This is more so a soft date for season 3. Season 3 of JJK probably coming back around like July 3rd, July 10th, something like that. Some early July is when it's coming back because that's when I think I'll be ready and done with everything I want to do. So keep an eye out for that alongside some other stuff we make in the future. But yeah, that is the end of the final Jujutsu Kaisen Will the Curse analysis system overview.